medical marvels on abc7ny.com.
I want my dollars to go further, and my Christmas list did not get any smaller. I discovered this amazing place called Early.
Is my microphone on?
Yes.
Okay, because I was having trouble today at a department head meeting. It gave me trouble. God bless you to whoever sneezed.
I lost internet for a little while, so if I here, it means I lost it again.
Oh, geez.
I don't know what happened or why.
Might have to put my, I don't know, is that tree too distracting? I'm like, I have lights
Let
on.
me turn the volume up because I could barely hear you. Okay, say it again.
So is that lights in the back behind me too distracting?
No. By the time everybody comes on, you're this big anyway.
That's true.
I could say.
Oh,
This is gonna be forever again.
I hope not.
I feel like I've built this building itself.
We probably could. We will know the plans very well. Oh my gosh. Crazy. Crazy, crazy. I don't know. I'm going to attempt to do my minutes for the meeting as the meeting's going on. Not sure it's going to work.
That's what I do with historical. I have one laptop on my lap.
What I'm going to do.
The other one's through Zoom, and I'm like this. You can't see my hands, but I'm like this.
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay, I cannot get warm today.
Stay up there. Don't come down. Talking to my dog.
I don't know. All mine are acting like they've been drugged. They're all out cold. Are you watching, what the hell's the name of it? Big Sky?
No. What is that on?
Hold on. I checked my DVR because I don't know. Must have been on, it was on Tuesday night. We're 3 episodes in.
Is it on Netflix?
No, I think channel
Oh.
with Ryan Phillippe.
I think I saw an advertisement.
It's pretty good.
I have to look for it. What am I watching on TV? And I wish I would have known because Tuesday nights on TV is usually really not good.
Yeah, it's
Not a
pretty
great
good.
name.
The time's on 10 o'clock. It's pretty good.
I watched Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders premiered last Tuesday. Watched it last night. I
Good.
DVR that. It's just fun to watch. It's fun to watch this one because they're all in quarantine. Like they had a quarantine for 2 weeks before they got there. It's
Is this
pretty
a
good.
new first season? Or
It's, oh no, this is the season 13.
Oh, I don't think I ever saw it.
I turned Megan onto it. But I'll have to check that Big Sky. Okay, I'll have to look at that. I'll remember that next
Yeah,
week.
there's 3 in. What else?
I think Wednesday is, I turned my TV off. Amazing Race, I think, is on tonight. I like that. I like watching the
Watched
Amazing
that
Race.
since like they were
I
first.
know. I love that show. I always wanted to do it, but I'm kind of directionally challenged in that regard. I think I would be like those 2 blondes and like, we're lost again.
I'm the worst. Like we went to West Virginia to visit John's family a couple years ago, and then we went back a second time, and his cousin was like, oh, we're gonna eat at a Mexican restaurant, and I was like, oh, the one in the shopping mall, and he's like, yeah. I'm like, I know exactly where that is. John's like, we're in the middle of nowhere in West Virginia. He said, but we'll be like, we pulled out of what's the restaurant in the train station in Short Hills?
Oh, yeah.
We pulled out of that parking lot and I didn't know how to get home. I'm like, do we make a right or a left? He was like, are you kidding me? You could find a Mexican restaurant in West Virginia, but you can't figure out how to get out of your own town. I'm like, I don't know where we are.
The same thing happened in Springfield. I was over on Henshaw. I got that, which is over by you.
Yeah.
I got to her house with no problem, except when I got out, I didn't go the way I came in. And when I got to Baltusrol, for some reason I turned right. Well, obviously that's not right. That's not going to get me home. I'm like, where am I going? And I'm like, how could I get lost? I drove here. It was late. I said it was late. I blamed it on. I couldn't see where I was going.
It's dark out. The lighting's not that good.
Dark. I didn't know. Let's see.
Who's here? Fishman.
Anybody here? Oh, Eric's
Bringing Fishman over.
All right. Amazing Race is on at 8. I'll have to DVR that. Think we'll be done by 8? No, I don't think so. I'm dreaming. How are they going to light the tree? Nobody can be there.
Right?
It's probably going to be as good as the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade was.
Yeah. Can you imagine how New Year's Eve is going to look?
Well, there's no people. You can't have any people.
It's good. Like, what's Seacrest going to do the whole time?
Just who's he going to interview?
Yeah. Or Jenny McCarthy. She can't get like all drunk, and
she's funny. I like her.
She's like my entertainment that night.
She was a mess. Oh well. Oh, I hear you. Oh, what I do? Do that all the time. Yeah, for some reason I'm working from home and I had to be at a department head meeting, but I'm going through LogMeIn and access the meeting through the information they sent. But when I log in through LogMeIn and my video goes on, it shows my chair at work, which is empty. And I don't get sound because it's probably playing at my computer at work. So I'm like, so it took me 15 minutes. Finally, I just called in. And then I realized after it was over, that I knew that's what the problem had, because I have another one on Friday. And I'm going to have to do it. Because I know I have to do I do this meeting through my personal account. I don't go through, like I do it on my personal laptop. I don't do it through LogMeIn or anything. And Alex said for some reason it doesn't work. So it's a pain though. Ugh. I don't think Martha's coming tonight. I don't know. Or was it the last meeting she wasn't at? I'm not sure.
I don't remember.
Oh no, she's going to be here tonight because she asked me to send the link. I thought she said she wasn't going to be here. I saw on Facebook somebody decorated their tree as the Grinch. I don't know, maybe it was like on Facebook, the top where the star or the whatever the ornament was the Grinch's head. Then she had like green and red ornaments, and then the bottom where she had feet. So she made.
Oh wow!
It was actually pretty cool, except it's the Grinch, you know, like anti-Christmas. Why would I want him on my tree? Yeah, I got a tree up. I don't have ornaments on it. I'm getting there.
I haven't put a tree up in like probably 3 years.
Really?
Kids didn't even notice. No one cares.
I love having my tree up. I put it up this year. I put it up the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Mostly because I had to get my son's tree out of my attic because I had to keep it for them. So, well, I'm up here big mine now and put mine up too.
Move it.
Hello, Eric.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Hello.
Hello.
That person is not a member.
Is that ours?
No,
Okay.
this is Ed Bozak. What's the matter? Yes, Ed, what's up?
How are you, Nicole?
Good. How are you?
Good. Oy. Gotta look in the mirror, see if I need a light, see what's going on. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna put this off and go get my packet of paper. So good evening and thank you for joining. Eileen, looks like you're with us for now. You are muted, I think.
Eileen, I don't know if you're hearing me, but you're muted. Is anybody hearing me?
I hear you.
Okay. Are you hearing me at a decent volume?
You're a little
Yes, I
soft,
can-
but it's clear.
I could barely hear you, Beth.
Okay. This,
Better.
I don't know.
Better.
Better. All right. I'll speak into the, thank you.
That's better.
Thanks, Eileen.
Eileen, I think I see Shannak and Paul Phillips in the attendees mode, and Gaston looks like it's popping in.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
Oh.
Hi, everyone. Sorry.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, we're just at 7:30, but hopefully Ed, oh, looks like Ed is jumping on. Okay. And what else are we waiting for? I believe Tara is also joining us this evening. I don't see her in just yet.
Evening, everyone.
And
Hi there.
I reached out to Rich Keller. That notice was that was from the first time around when they went in 2018, and it was just put in the application to be deemed complete until I gave them a date. He did verify that the meeting date did say December 2nd, 2020. He said Mike will be able to attest that as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, well, we're just after 7:30, so we'll begin, and I will begin reading our meeting notice and such. And I hope that, oh, and Joe is joining us as well. Great. And hopefully by the time we are beginning our business, we'll have our full attendance. As we begin. Okay.
Hello.
And so, and my audio is okay. You're able to hear me. I don't know if I'm still coming in very soft.
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting that. Okay, I will begin. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall, posting on the front door of Town Hall, forwarding to the Millburn Township Clerk, and mailing to the item and the Star Ledger, which publications are the officially designated township newspapers. A notice indicating that this regularly scheduled meeting would take place on Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. In addition, in accordance with NJSA 1049.1 and NJAC 539-1.5, B, an electronic notice of this remote meeting of at least 48 hours giving the time, date, location, and to the extent known agenda of this meeting and whether formal action may or may not be taken at this meeting has been given by posting the same on the Millburn Township official website and on the main access doors to the municipal building where the public would routinely attend in-person meetings. As a reminder, in accordance with Section 7A of the Open Public Meetings Act, planning boards in general and the Millburn Township Planning Board in particular do not entertain general public comment as is otherwise required for a municipal governing board or a board of education. However, all members of the public shall have the right to ask questions of witnesses presented by applicants during the course of public hearing on an application for development, and will further have the right to make any comments with regard to that application at the appropriate time when recognized by the chair. myself. I'm going to continue. One more thought, bear with me. At the conclusion of each witness's testimony, planning board members will have the opportunity to ask questions of that witness. After that, I, as the chair, will announce that members of the public can ask questions of that witness. Using the raise hand function in Zoom, which you hover over, on my screen it's to the right. If you're on a phone, there's a different way to do the raise hand function. We will bring you into our panel. You're allowed to unmute and turn on your video if you so choose, so that you can identify yourself via name and address and ask questions of that witness. We'll repeat this process for all witnesses, and thereafter the chair will announce that members of the public can make any comment related to the application for development being considered by the board. At that time, should you choose, you would be sworn in to provide your individual testimony on the application. With that, please do roll call, Eileen.
All right, hold on. It was just here. I just lost it. Bear with me. Daniel Bear,
Here.
Diane Aglo,
Here.
Gaston Halpert,
Here.
Mark Matzel,
Here.
Jorge Mastro Pietro,
Here.
Joseph Steinberg, Joe. I don't know if he's having.
Joe, you're already unmuted. Are you hearing us?
Yes.
All right. Tara Prupus,
Here.
David Morrow,
Here.
Chinook Tana,
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Miriam Salerno,
Here.
Chairwoman Beth Zoll.
Here.
Joe, can you hear us? He's not hearing us. I don't know what.
And get in touch with him, make sure his volume is up on his.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah.
Eileen, if I begin with the approval of minutes, would you mind reaching out to him? Are you able to do that?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll begin. Let's begin and continue on. So we have a number of things to address tonight with the approval of minutes from September 16th, 2020, which were circulated a few weeks back. Did anybody have any comments or questions regarding the set of meeting minutes from September 16th?
I did not get any from anybody.
Okay, great. And I can open to let us know. I believe everybody here was in attendance at that meeting based on the minutes. So if there are any corrections or revisions, would anybody make a motion to approve the minutes?
Hi, Vivian. Hi, this is Eileen Davitt with the Millburn Township.
Eileen, you're not muted.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve made by Gaston, and a second. Eileen, I'll keep track so I can fill you in. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And who was the motion and the second, real quick?
Gaston was the motion
Yeah.
and Mark was the second.
Thank you.
Wait a minute.
Minutes of September 16th will pass. Thank you.
I'm having all kinds of problems with my.
The next item on our business, the next item of business is the dates, the proposed dates for the calendar year, the 2021 meeting dates, which were also circulated by Eileen. I don't know if anybody had shared any individual feedback with her or had any issues with the dates as proposed for next calendar year, but all members of the planning board whose term continues through next year should. Joe, I think we can hear you.
No, we can't.
We could hear him. He can't hear
This
us.
afternoon it worked perfect.
Yeah, now we can hear you,
Oh,
Joe.
now.
He can't hear us.
Muted By the host. I may be actually on the.
He has to change his audio
don't know,
settings on
so-
Zoom.
Hold on a second.
What are you trying to do
I'm
right
trying
now?
to get back and look at my emails because Eileen gave me
What,
just
just
something
use-
to click on.
The,
But I have to get-
The only date I was a little
Said,
questionable about was the September 8th.
or
I didn't know if that
sometime
was,
earlier today.
it's the last day of Rosh Hashanah, but if
There it
it
is.
be after sunset, were we okay? I
Look at
didn't, I
the
wasn't sure.
monitor, Dad.
And-
not your
Right.
computer.
It's problematic.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, it would be problematic for me.
As it's after the end of the second day, that's problematic.
No, because planning board would start at 7:30, correct?
Yeah,
Already been through this.
And typically at that time of
Stop,
year,
Stop.
we're
We're already in another.
going upwards to
meeting.
8 o'clock.
yeah,
To
before it
leave
starts.
and
So-
join this
Okay.
meeting. Yeah.
The problem is we can't meet on September 1st because the township committee has to meet that day, so we'll just have the one meeting.
Eileen, it doesn't affect everybody. I mean, it's.
Well, I don't know, I typically try to keep.
Yeah,
the-
no, I understand.
Yeah,
That's
that's
fair.
up to the board. That
Yeah.
was the only reason for that.
So I think, Eileen, how about we make a plan to not have that meeting? And if for some reason we get into the situation where,
We need it.
like we have had this year, where we need to attempt to schedule infill meetings, we will, so to speak, cross that bridge as it
Okay.
comes, but and potentially identify that date if it's a last resort.
So we'll just go with the one date in September, September 22nd.
I wonder if we should make it the 15th because it's mid-month.
That's Yom Kippur.
We're going to avoid that one.
That's why it's and to September 1st, like I said, the township committee is,
Absolutely. It's
night.
always a tricky month. Okay, then let's just stay with the 22nd. Thank you for that check.
okay. Got it.
Okay. So we don't need to, do we need to move and approve it?
I think we just do a voice vote, like a motion and voice.
Great. I will move to approve the dates as set forth with the removal of September 8th.
I second that.
Thanks, Jorge. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So we will approve the calendar for 2021 to 2022 meeting dates. Thank you. Eileen, do I have it correct that we're moving right into applications? I don't have any ordinances as listed in the version I have in front of me. Make
There
sure
was yeah, I did have, I don't know, maybe did I not send it? Yeah, we do have the two ordinances. Maybe that's the outdated one. There's two ordinances.
I have the file, I just don't have it on the agenda here. So
And I think Paul's going to speak about them briefly.
perfect. I want to just introduce them correctly, reference them correctly. Can you read the numbers of the proposed ordinances? Or let's start with one.
Madam Chairwoman, the first ordinance that we have is ordinance 2566-20. And this is permitting permitting short-term rentals as an accessory use in most of the residential zones.
Thank you. And I see they were packaged, effectively together in the subject heading of the memorandum we received. But I take it to be, we should have a separate discussion about each one. So I'd prefer
Yes.
to hold on that one. I'm sorry, Ed.
No, yes, I think you're right. They're two related ordinance. I'm sorry, they're not related ordinances. The first one
Right.
is regarding the accessory structures. The second one is the zoning map in general.
Great. So So to that point, we have Paul Phillips, our planner, with us this evening. Now, Paul, if I don't want to speak for you, but I believe you did not draft the letter and the language in this ordinance, but as our planner and familiar with our master plan, you are able to speak to us to the degree in which it's consistent or not consistent with the master plan. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate, Beth. I was not involved in the drafting of either of the ordinances, so I cannot speak to either the rationale or the substance of the ordinances, but I did have the opportunity to read them and also to look at the master plan. And I can certainly speak to master plan consistency, or at the very least, give the members of the board my opinion in that regard. So the first one, as Ed mentioned, has to do with an ordinance that would permit short-term rentals as an accessory use in certain residential zoning districts. As you probably are aware, the master plan documentation, including the recent reexamination that the planning board adopted, is pretty much silent on this particular issue. So I think on its face, the board certainly is in a position to indicate an opinion that the ordinance is not inconsistent with the master plan, which is the language in the MLUL on your referral powers with regard to review of ordinance to indicate where there are inconsistencies. Again, you can comment on the ordinance as well, but certainly from a master plan consistency standpoint, there's nothing inherently inconsistent because the master plan is essentially silent on this issue.
Thank you, Paul. Okay.
And I can also go to the second ordinance, but I don't know if Ed wants to give an introduction on that.
Well, why don't we handle each of these separately? So perhaps if there are comments, we can have them now on the accessory apartment. I'm sorry, the short-term rental ordinance, and then take a vote on that as to what our position is going to be, and then move on to the second ordinance.
Great. Thank you. So to that point, I open it up to any members of the board who have questions, comments, or reactions. You want to have engage in a dialogue regarding either what Paul said or your own interpretation of the text.
I have
Yes,
a question,
Don?
Madam Chairwoman. Yeah, what are the implications? So we previously had an ordinance that said that short-term rentals will be permitted through the township, and now we're going to put them as an accessory use into the zoning code. Why do we need to do that? Why can't it just stay as the permits? What is the implication of this ordinance?
And I guess, Paul, or do you feel comfortable fielding that, or you're not sure?
I can't really answer that because I wasn't, again, involved in either the substance or the drafting of the ordinance. So I don't know what the logic was behind it in terms of how it compares to prior ordinances. So unfortunately, I can't comment on that.
That's okay. And Tara or Diana, if you happen to know, because of your involvement at the township committee level, any background or insight that you could share regarding, what Gaston's question in particular, I would look to you if you have any. I would like to see Diana. Nothing specific. Okay.
Beth, if I can, I did receive earlier on a memorandum from Kit Falcon, the township attorney, who shared with me a memo that he sent to the governing body. And again, I was not involved in any of this, but this may be of some assistance in answering the question. He begins it with an explanation as follows. As I mentioned at the last public meeting, following the adoption of the short-term rental ordinance, you will now have before you a land use ordinance, which is the companion to the regulatory ordinance. It makes short-term rentals a permitted accessory use in the R3 through R8 residential zones. And then he goes on to explain that. I surmise from those few sentences that there is a separate ordinance regulating these short-term rentals that the township adopted. But there was, I assume, some question as to whether they were permitted, despite the fact that we're regulating them. And I suspect the thought was that it would make sense to meld the two together, the regulatory section with where they're permitted or how they're permitted, so that now you have sort of a composite picture. So I suspect that's what they were trying to do, and that's what this ordinance does. But I'm only deriving that from the memo that Kit prepared. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And I see Diane is.
Yeah, I'll give you a short little background. There was about 10 or 12 houses in town that were using Airbnb. There was, in just the rooms, there was 2 houses that were total house Airbnb that had some compliance issues that really went to Dave Cuomo. There were some inconsiderate users of these Airbnbs. So Jackie Lieberberg wanted to make sure that we couldn't allow them. And because there was nothing on the book saying they were or weren't allowed, if it's not in the book specifically saying it's not allowed, then you can assume it is allowed. And Jackie wanted to make sure it would no longer be allowed. And that's the genesis of that, wrapped up quickly. Tara, anybody have any questions?
So what is not allowed now, Diane?
You cannot use your house for an Airbnb. No rentals less than 31 days, I believe. Tara, can you just, I haven't looked at it a bit. If you have a house, you can still rent 1 room in your house. You have to have a permit. You have to pay for an inspection by the fire department or Dave Cuomo. And it cannot be for less than 31 days. Tara, do you have a better memory of it than me?
I don't, but it has to be owner occupied, and I actually wasn't there for that exact ordinance.
Yeah, this was something that was important to Jackie Lieberberg, and she'd been working on it for a couple of years, and then it finally got through Kit and the township committee, and that's really what it's about.
Thank you, and thank you for the context. That's helpful, I think, for
try to keep it short.
Yes, thank you.
So, right, and I think that it's what Diane just said reflects what, oh, sorry, Tara, go ahead.
Just a quick question. So the actual ordinance was not passed along to the planning board?
The ordinance is being passed now. It's for our consideration.
No, I meant.
Tara, we received a copy of the draft language of ordinance 2566.
Okay, just making it right.
And we received it November 23rd, a couple of weeks.
But I believe the township committee already passed it on second read, right?
No,
No, we didn't.
it was introduced on November 10th.
Mhm.
And I made Christine aware that we did not have a meeting until December 2nd. So I believe it's at your next meeting.
Got it.
The memorandum reads the public hearings for these ordinances are scheduled for December 15th.
Oh, that's right. We decided we were no longer going to do things in 2 consecutive meetings. And I guess that's how that happened. Okay.
Okay. So, right. And as always, we, the planning board, are weighing in on whether it is consistent or inconsistent with the master plan. If residents would like to take it up with the township committee, who's the governing body, to, to tweak the language or make any recommended changes, that the December 15th meeting would be the venue to voice those opinions. Joe, are you able to hear us? I just want to check in with you.
No, he's still.
Okay.
Our limited mandate here again is to just determine if it's consistent or not with the master plan, correct?
That's correct, Sean.
We're not here to debate the merit or demerit of the ordinance itself.
I think if I heard you correctly, you're saying we're not here to change the language of it?
We're not here to debate the merit or demerit of it, right? Our limited mandate is to just opine whether it's consistent or inconsistent.
That's true. I think we could potentially take it one step further, which we have sometimes in the past, which if we think that there is a potential amendment or way it could be tweaked to be more consistent or to be less inconsistent, we could make that recommendation. But with regards to what I think we heard tonight, that effectively we were silent on it. The master plan doesn't give us direction of whether this should or should not be to establish any zoning ordinance with respect to this use does not seem inconsistent, as my personal opinion, but I hope we can have that as a discussion.
Right. And Mr. Buzak, could you help us interpret the definition of short-term rental as stated in the ordinance? Because what confused me was it says 28 days or less, up to a cumulative of 60.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm sorry, I think.
No, go ahead, Diane.
I think that was to make sure it was no longer allowed to have short-term rentals. But if you want to rent somebody's house for 30 days or more, if you're doing construction and you want to rent a house, that would be okay. It was purely to prevent short-term Airbnb or VRBO or whatever, and to collect a fee to make sure people are being compliant, that they have egress, fire, smoke detectors. That was really what it was about, preventing Airbnbs in Millburn Township.
I understand what you're saying there, and I get that part clearly. What I'm not getting is that what the language in short-term rental, definition of short-term rental, is that what it is saying?
Well, I was not part of this as well, but the title of the ordinance that we're considering tonight, right now, is as follows: an ordinance to amend and supplement the development regulations and zoning ordinance of the Township of Millburn to permit short-term rentals as an accessory use in certain residential zoning districts. So from the title of this, and again, I just have this ordinance here. The intention is to permit short-term rentals as an accessory use in the R3 through R8 residential zoning districts. And secondly, it is to define what is meant by short-term rental. And I think, as Diane pointed out, it refers to an occupancy for 28 consecutive days or less, but then it allows up to a cumulative total period of not to exceed 60 days in a calendar year. So I just be repeating the language if I try to explain it. It says it right there. As I read this, in the R3 through R8 zones, short-term rentals of the nature that I've just said will be permitted accessory uses in those zones, provided that you meet those definitions and meeting those timing periods. And then again, I think as Diane pointed out, if this will not apply if someone is renting out a house for a longer period of time while they are while they're building a house or temporarily relocating, this ordinance would not apply. This is more of a commercial type operation, so to speak. So I think that it all fits together. This defines what the short-term rental is, and then the second section of this amends the zoning ordinances to allow this as accessory uses in these zones. So
I interpret it as two steps, right? One, short-term rental means a rental of less than 28 days. So you're permitted to rent for less than 28 days, but the total number of days in a calendar year that you rent a unit for or part of a unit for cannot exceed 60 days.
Exactly.
Those Airbnb type uses are permitted in the R3 to R8 zones, subject to some other regulations which are separate, by way of amending the zoning provisions. That's how, I mean, is that, just so that we're on the same page as to what it means, is that a proper summation?
That's what I get out of this. And Paul, I see Paul's nodding his head. I get out of this that, yes, they are permitted in those zones.
That's how I read it as well.
Dan, it's,
Heard you say.
Sorry, can I say something? What Shanak is saying is actually what I don't understand. Can we rent for a weekend? Because it says 28 days or less. So can I rent for a weekend?
Yes, under
Yeah.
certain stipulations. If-
Okay.
Yes. And if it's, if you get a permit and a license, and if making sure that the biggest problem that where people were buying, like had a house, they weren't anywhere in sight, people were renting and causing like chaos. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
but if you have an attached unit or an apartment, you can't rent it out. This is only for R3 to R8 zones, which are single family zones.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, so Shanak, was that answered your question?
No, I understand now what it says.
Yep.
Thank you for indulging me.
No, of course. I want to make sure you are understanding what it's saying.
To now opine on whether it's inconsistent or not, I mean, if you're restricting it to less than 60 calendar days, I don't see it infringing on a hotel use. So I don't see it as inconsistent with the master plan in my view.
Okay. Does anybody else have further questions or clarifications? Gaston, you as well? You're muted.
Yeah, Gaston, you're muted.
Gaston, you're muted. Okay.
All right, let me start my speech over. Okay, no.
It was great. We all were able to read your lips and we all understood what you said.
Excellent. Yes.
But just in case for those who might not have heard it all, go ahead.
Good. Yes. So now that we got the definition, that's the way I sort of understood it from the beginning. And where I think it comes into the master plan is in goal number 1, where we're encouraging appropriate land uses that promote the character of the township as a small suburb of the highest quality. So if we're meeting that with this new ordinance, then I think we're consistent with it. If you think we're not, then I do think we have a problem. So are we meeting the character of a township as a small suburb of the highest quality by even permitting these Airbnbs throughout? And I guess now it's just regulation. I'm not sure if the township can say no, or everybody that pays the $250 automatically gets it. But that's where I see that it comes into play with the master plan. Thanks.
Sure, I think that's a good consideration. Anybody else have thoughts regarding it? Okay. So Ed, I just want to turn back to you because we are going to handle them as a sort of separate, though related, but separate items. So if we were to make a motion, it would be to declare it as one way or the other, and then would we just do a voice vote, or we should do a roll call vote?
We should do a roll call vote because this will go back to the township committee by memorandum that Eileen will write, setting forth our position.
Thank you.
It is, if I can ask a question, but is saying not inconsistent a part of something we can do, or do we have to say is consistent or not?
It's the former. The statute, as Paul said, is stated in the negative. The determination that we have to make is that it is not inconsistent.
Thank you.
And I think that is actually rather well suited maybe to this specific application, because as we've discussed, aside from the point that Gaston raised of deciding whether we feel that this ordinance, speaks to that first goal of the master plan, and what it says if it speaks to it, I don't know that we're necessarily finding an inconsistency. think is the kind of consensus that in this dialogue I've heard. So to that end, with the goal of moving us forward, I will make a motion to find ordinance number 2566-20 not inconsistent with the current Millburn Township master plan.
I will second.
Daniel Bear,
Yes.
Diane Aglo,
We didn't hear you, Diane.
Sorry, yes.
Gaston Halbert,
Yes.
Jorge Mastro Pietro,
Yes.
Mark Matzel,
Yes.
Tara Prupus.
Yes.
I'm gonna skip Joe because we can't
Yeah,
hear
I
us.
heard the whole.
Oh, can you hear us now? Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay,
Oh, yes.
thank you. Miriam Salerno,
Yes.
Beth Zoll.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Welcome, Joe. We're glad we can hear you and you can hear us. Let's move to our second ordinance of the night, which is 2567-20. And it's titled Ordinance to Amend and Supplement the Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance of the Township of Millburn and to adopt the revised official zoning map of the township. And Paul, I believe you mentioned you gave this a review as well.
Yeah, so this ordinance would amend the development regulations and zoning ordinance by adopting a revised official zoning map for the township. And this is in the ordinance itself, but as a point of information, the last prior update of the official zoning map dated back to August 2008. The map was revised to August 2020, and that August 2020 revised zoning map would now be referenced in the ordinance as part of this amendment under section 602, which deals with the zoning map. So this would become the new official zoning map referenced in the document. And from a master plan consistency standpoint, certainly, and this is a no-brainer, but the exercise of updating the zoning map is certainly something that, in my opinion, is not inconsistent with the master plan.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody have questions, comments on this?
I have a question.
Go
My
ahead.
question is, what's the difference between this map and the prior map?
A good question. Paul, I don't know if you actually caught any changes or if perhaps some of the overlay zones were reflected in this.
Yeah, I think I'll try and answer at least based upon what I know, is that some of the ordinance amendments which involved, I think, map amendments, I think were basically consolidated into this single revised zoning map. And I guess that would take into account the 12-year period since the prior map. But short of that, I'm not so sure what else would have gone into what other changes would have gone into this.
If I might, Madam Chairwoman, I think also what happens when these ordinances are adopted, they're typically the first couple sections of zoning amendments refer to a change of zoning on particular blocks and lots, so those are specified in the ordinance. And then secondly, there's a generic provision many times in the ordinances, the second section or the last section of the ordinance that says, the zoning map is hereby amended to reflect these changes. And all of that's great and all that's legal and it all, is binding and everything else. The difficulty is no one actually goes many times and gets the zoning map and makes the change that they were directed to make because it's a generic direction. It just, it's in the passive voice. The zoning map is hereby amended like by some magic, the zoning map hears you and it changes. that doesn't happen. So I think that in many cases, if you look at the zoning map and you track the ordinances that have been changed since 2008, you'll find that there's some inconsistency there between the map and the ordinance. Now, the ordinance is the one that would govern for the reasons that I just gave, but if somebody just looks at the map, it doesn't give a true picture of what it is. And secondly, from talking to Alex earlier on, I believe that this map, and Martha may be able to help out. I don't know if she actually had been involved in drafting it, but this map, according to Alex, is much more precise because of the technology, the digital technology and all of that. Because even as you look at this one, they're not the easiest maps in the world to make out, but I guess digitally, you're now able to, someone's able to, not I, but someone's able to look at that and really be able to see, hone in on a lot and see what it is. But I'll defer to Martha if she has any comment on that.
Yeah, I would have to agree with what you said, Ed, because we did have our tax maps digitized a number of years ago. I think it was in 2014, which made everything much more accurate. And in addition, we were able to reflect the changes, the overlay zones were shown. And this new map is in color. It's much more easy to read. The other map in black and white and in small print, it was so difficult to decipher some of the actual zones. I mean, there were times that Eileen and I would sit and ponder our old map and say, is this specific lot, is it in this zone or is it in this zone? It was really difficult on those borderlines to see some of, where the changes took place. And we did actually found a couple mistakes in the old map that luckily no one ever called us on, but we were able to pick up a couple things that were had to be just revised to reflect what truly should have been happening. So this new map, we went over it with a fine tooth comb, and I think it is just much more clear, and it does, it's much more accurate in terms of the GIS mapping that was done a number of years ago. So I think it's a vast improvement over what we've been using.
Great, thank you. And I think maybe one recommendation that we can make as they send it back, if we do find this exercise itself not inconsistent, we may request something like what Ed stated, which is just for a notation of items that have changed from the 2008 to the 2020 as a recommendation that they list that and make that available where appropriate.
Okay. So.
Based on
ahead,
what
Joe.
Martha has said, I will move that this ordinance adopting the new map is not inconsistent with the zoning ordinances, with the master plan.
Does anybody want a second, Joe?
Second. Sorry.
Daniel Baer,
Yes.
Diane Aglo,
Yes.
Gaston Halpert,
Yes.
Jorge Mastro Pietro,
Yes.
Mark Matzel,
Yes.
Tara Prupus,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg,
Yes.
Miriam Salerno,
Yes.
Beth Zoll.
Yes. Thank you. So Eileen, you will be preparing the letters regarding both of those ordinances.
I'll do that tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move to our first application, 20013. Jonathan Gordon, it's 153, 163 Highland Ave for a minor subdivision approval.
All right, I need to bring over Michael Montefana and John Gordon. And I think that's all.
Good evening. So Mr. Gordon and Mr. Lanzafama, we have you in our panel.
Good evening.
Welcome. If it's just the two of you, I don't know if you need any other witnesses to be brought in. You're okay?
Just the two of us.
Okay. I turn it to you.
Let me swear in who's ever going to testify. If you would just raise your right hands, please. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in tonight's Zoom hearing to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Just state your names for the record, please.
Michael Lanzafama, Lanzafama, with the firm of Casey and Keller Incorporated, 258 Main Street, Millburn, New Jersey.
John Gordon at 163 Highland Avenue, Short Hills, New Jersey.
Thank you.
John, you want me to just take it from here?
You go ahead and start, and I can
you can fill in the gaps.
Fill in the gaps, yeah, since it's just a correction.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This application was before the planning board I would say about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. And through some miscommunication, the subdivision deeds were never recorded. So the subdivision was never perfected. And we're here tonight to reaffirm that approval that was originally granted, I believe, in 2019 for this particular property. The properties that
Mr. Lanzafama, can I just interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Before you go any further, I had a question regarding the notice on this application, because the notice form that was attached to the application referred to a December 18, 2020 hearing date. And obviously today is December 2nd. And I didn't know if I assumed that was just a sort of a placeholder that was put in there, but that the actual advertisement was correct. I spoke to Eileen, she checked, I can't recall if it was with you or
Rich Keller.
My partner, Rich Keller.
But there was confirmation. I just like that on the record, because the application does have an incorrect attachment.
Yeah, the notice that went out to the property owners, as well as the notice that was placed in the newspaper, did indicate the December 2nd planning board meeting. The date in the application documents that were submitted to Eileen is, as you said, were placeholder, because at the time we didn't have an exact date.
Fine, thank you. That goes to the jurisdiction of the board, so I wanted to get that out of the way right at the outset. I apologize for interrupting you, Mr. Lanzafama.
All right.
Please proceed.
Let me interrupt next. This is really a question for Mr. Buzak. Shouldn't Michael Lanzafama give us the benefit of his professional background and competence?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, I apologize, Joe. Again, Michael Lanzafama with Casey and Keller. I'm licensed professional engineer, land surveyor and planner, licensed in the state of New Jersey. I've been so licensed since 1984. I've testified before this board and numerous boards throughout the state on similar applications. As a matter of fact, I was the expert witness on this application when it was originally before the planning board a year and a half ago.
And your licenses are in good standing?
They are, sir.
And your testifying
Today
as
out a little bit, Beth. You're cutting out a little bit on your voice.
Sorry about that.
That's good. Thank you.
I believe you were asking me which hat am I wearing tonight?
Correct.
I'm wearing the hat of a land surveyor. Only land surveyors can perform subdivisions of land. So tonight I'm here as a professional land surveyor to testify regarding this transfer of land from one property owner to the next. Having said that, the two properties that we are dealing with is 153, 163 Highland Avenue, which are located on the westerly side of Highland Avenue, approximately 450 feet south of Stewart Road and about 390 feet north of Minisink Road. Lot Lot 2 in block 3104 is 153 Highland, and tax lot 3 in block 3104 is 163 Highland. If you would allow me, can I share my screen, Eileen?
Sure, go ahead.
What I have up on the screen currently is a copy of the minor subdivision plat, which was submitted as part of the application at sheet number 3 in the set of plans. And what this plan conveys is.
Mr. Lonzafama, let's mark this, please, as Exhibit A1.
Certainly.
And that's sheet 2 of your plans, I believe?
Sheet 3.
Sheet 3.
A1, sheet 3. Okay. And what Exhibit A1, sheet 3 represents is it depicts the conveyance of land from tax lot 2 to tax lot 3. Both of the properties are currently located in the R3 zone, which requires a minimum land area of 29,000 square feet, a minimum lot width of 115 feet, and a minimum lot depth of 175 feet. Lot 2, which is the southern lot, currently has a land area of over 81,000 square feet, 81,750 square feet to be exact. This is land owned by Mr. Feldman. It has 215 feet of frontage. It is 211.5 feet wide and over 400 feet deep. Lot 3, which is the northerly parcel, is owned by Mr. Gordon. And that property is currently sized at 59,035 square feet, has a frontage of over 197 feet, a lot width of over 188 feet, and a lot depth in excess of 375 feet. What the proposal involves, and you can see that we've shaded the land area to be conveyed from one lot to the next. And I'll just, let me just blow that up a little bit, and you'll see the notation that we've indicated. This 10-foot wide strip, which then angles and crosses the common boundary between the two lots, would convey 2,827 square feet from tax lot 2, which is the southern lot, to tax lot 3. And what that does, it eliminates an existing non-conforming condition with regard to the location of the driveway in close proximity to the property line. Your ordinance requires a minimum separation from the property line to a driveway, and this would provide that additional land area to remove that existing non-compliant condition. The line then angles and comes perpendicular to Highland Avenue. And then there's a small sliver, a small triangular area of 55 square feet, which would be conveyed from lot 3 to lot 2. And the purpose of that was just to create a more regular sideline and to incorporate all of those trees adjacent to the driveway and uniformly show them on the tax lot 3. This conveyance of land will not impact the properties in any way negatively. They will still be fully conforming with the ordinance, and the resulting lot areas under proposed conditions. Tax lot 2 would be reduced to 79,978 square feet, and tax lot 3 would be increased to 61,087 square feet. So and the long and the short of it is just a land conveyance from one neighbor to the next, so that he can eliminate an existing non-conforming condition on his property. The lots will be fully compliant after the subdivision. It would have no impact on any development that would happen on either lot. And that's basically the subdivision that we are proposing. This was granted, as I said, under a prior resolution that, however, the deeds were not properly recorded at the courthouse.
Okay, thank you. Is that the beginning or the entirety of your?
That's the entirety of our presentation.
Okay,
You could see on the exhibit A1, you could see the shaded area that's being conveyed from one parcel to the next.
great. Does anybody from the board, and if I can ask you to unshare, I apologize, you may have to reshare, but that way I can see everything.
That's fine.
Any
Just
questions?
one question.
Go ahead, Joe.
Are you saying, Michael, that no variances are being requested in connection with this minor subdivision?
That's correct, Joe.
I move approval.
Joe, before we can do that, we're gonna go to the public for allowing them
That's right,
to.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board on this? Okay, so members of the public, I hope I'm coming through clearly. If anybody has any questions for Mr. Lanzafama regarding this application, you would use the raise hand function and we would bring you in to ask any questions that you had regarding that testimony. Okay, I'm seeing none at the time. And if anybody similarly from the public would like to give testimony, not just ask a question, but make any testimony at large, may do so now if you would like. Okay. Thank you for waiting. Joe, if you would like to carry forth, I now invite you to.
Yes, I'll now make a motion for discussion and vote to approve this application.
I second that.
Okay. Daniel Bear,
Yes.
Diane Aglo,
Yes.
Gaston Halbert,
Yes.
Jorge Mastropietro,
Yes.
Mark Matzel,
Yes.
Tara Prupus,
Yes.
Joseph Steinberg,
Yes.
Miriam Salerno,
Yes.
Beth Zoll.
Yes. And thank you. So application 20013 is approved.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Sorry for the redo.
No problem.
We'll get it right.
Thank you. And we encourage you to finalize this one for everybody's benefit. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Our next and final application for the night is going to be application 20007, continuation of our hearing on 85 Woodland Road LLC for preliminary final major site plan approval.
All right, I have Mike lots of fun. I don't know why I left. Sorry, Mike, I should have left you there. Is there anybody else that needs to be brought over right now, Mr. Lucino?
No, we have Mr. Lanzafama and if David Minnow.
Okay.
Mr. Bear, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I'd like, I'm gonna ask for some clarification. If we could, before we get into testimony. In reading the application for Woodland Road, the application states that it's for the construction of this project, okay? But when I go into the professional reports, and I just need this for my edification, so I want to understand what the actual application action is. And I go into, Martha, your report. And the report states that the proposed project calls for the demolition and removal of all existing buildings and pavement. So I guess my question is to, you, Eileen, or to council. Provide a definition of this action to me so I understand what's going on, because does this application include the demolition of the buildings because the report states it does. So I just want some clarification for myself and everybody else, is that if this is just about the construction, or it also includes the demolition and the construction. So if somebody could help me on that, I would appreciate it.
The application is for site plan approval. There's no approval required by this board for demolition. I think Martha says the applicant is seeking major site plan approval for the construction of mixed-use development. I don't know if they were just.
And I'm just for my clarification, I'm not blaming everybody, but it does state here the proposed project calls for the demolition. So if you were to read that and take it literally, it would state, it basically states that the proposed action includes the demolition, but you're stating that it does not.
It does not. If you look at previous statute where she says site and project description, she specifically says it's for a site plan approval. I think she was describing what was happening as part of the application.
I understand. That's fine because I understand that a permit was provided for demolition. Demolition is occurring now. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. And just a little bit of laying the groundwork for everybody. Again, anybody who's an attendee from the public, as you just saw with the last application, at the conclusion of any individual witness's testimony, planning board ask questions of that witness, we will then turn to the public for you to ask questions of that witness. This meeting is a continuation of, I believe, 2 prior meetings. I think my notes say the October 7th.
And October 28th.
4th. Is that?
No, October 28th. We had a special meeting on this. I think November 4th was Beehive.
Correct. Thank you. So October 28th meeting continuation, because we re-noticed and began this application. Thank you for clarifying.
There was, I think just for the record, there was a September hearing, and because of the renotice that took place, there was effectively a redoing of that first hearing on October 7th.
Right.
Then it was continued at a special meeting on October 28th. And now this is really the 3rd real meeting, so to speak, since the first one in September wound up having to be done over.
Thank you for clarifying that. So that means that all participants who will be eligible to vote will have either attended in person or have listened to the entirety of the recordings of meetings from October 7th and 28th. And so everybody has notified the board that either we know you were here because you were in attendance, or you have notified us that you have listened and are caught up to date, as it were, to be able to continue with hearing this application. That said, Mr. Inglesino, thank you for your patience. I would like to turn it to you to pick up right where you left off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the board, board professionals, as well as the public. John Inglesino for the applicant, 85 Woodland Road, LLC. This is a continuation, as was indicated, of 2 prior hearings. My first witness, 2 witnesses for tonight, Michael Lanzafama, who has been qualified and sworn, and I'm sure Mr. Lanzafama understands that he is still under oath. And he will confirm, as he did in the previous application, that his license is still valid in effect. He will be addressing some cleanup items from the October 28th meeting. And then my other witness for this evening is our architect, David Minnow. We will still need another evening because we're going to hear from our traffic expert, Gary Dean, and also from our planner, Michael Tovia, but they are not here this evening, so we're not going to finish this evening. I don't know that time would permit us to finish anyway, but we won't be. So at this time, Mr. Lanzafama, I'd like to call you as a witness. You understand you're still under oath, correct?
I acknowledge I'm still under oath and all my licenses are still valid.
Okay, so Mr. Lanzafama, there were a few items and there was a resubmission of some plans from the last meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Inglesino. At our prior hearing, I'm sure you all recall, we had put into evidence some red line sketches, which I believe we had marked as exhibits A13 and 14, which dealt with the issue of the staircases encroaching into the public rights of way of both Chatham Road and Woodland Road. So we've resubmitted the formally revised site plan, which is sheet number 4 in your site plan set, with a revision date of November 20th, 2020. And just starting up on Chatham Road, I'll share my screen if it's okay with it. I assume it's okay, right?
Yes, yes.
Please do, thanks.
I'm sorry for jumping in like that. Beginning over on Chatham Road, you'll see that the entry on the westerly edge of the medical office space, that original staircase, as you recall, came straight out into the public rights of way. We have a sidewalk area that intersects with the public sidewalk, and then the staircase runs parallel to the facade of the building, thereby not encroaching into the public right of way. Then moving down to Woodland Road, we had indicated that we would be incorporating a handicap access ramp. The red line sketch was refined so that the ramp itself kind of married directly against the building. It made for a cleaner design and would allow for handicap access directly into the lobby without encroaching into the right-of-way of Woodland Road. There was originally a staircase that projected into Woodland Road. What we did again is we came parallel to the facade of the building, a 90-degree turn, staircase down, and a sidewalk meeting up with the public sidewalk along Woodland Road. This actually gave us a little more opportunity to put in some more landscaping across the front of that platform area that allows for entry into the lobby. What we also did as part of the issues that came up was the loading and unloading that occurs at the lobby area, as well as the entrance to the medical space, and also the possibility of move-ins and move-outs. So we explored the possibility of creating a loading area off of Woodland Road. And we didn't change the site plan directly because we wanted to try and share this with the board members and get their reaction and see how they felt about this possible alteration in the design. This would be, I think we're up to A16, Mr. Buzak. Is that correct? You're muted, Ed.
Yes, A16, and this is the revised sheet 3. Is that correct, Mr. Lanzafama?
No.
Sheet 4, sorry.
Sheet 4 was the site plan, so you're going to call that A16.
Yes, why don't we do that? Yes.
Okay, and then this exhibit, which I'm bringing up now, is a loading area study. We'll call that A17. And it was prepared by my office under my direction. And it's a blow up of the intersection of Chatham Road and Woodland Road. And it shows a little notch out that we could create in the curb line that would allow for a delivery truck, a UPS, a U-Haul type truck to pull into that area, get out of the traveled way of Woodland Road, and give them direct access to the plaza or the lobby of the medical use, and then up into the lobby of the residential area to deliver packages or even do a move-in. They take advantage of the handicap ramp, and then the grade at the entrance to the medical space is at grade. So you could easily hand truck in any items that needed to be brought in. So we thought this was a good solution. We listened to the concerns of several of the neighbors, and we thought if this was acceptable, we would incorporate it into the overall site plan. So if we could get some comment or feedback from board members, I would appreciate that. I'll stop sharing if we want to. Do we want to have a little discussion about this?
Mr. Lanzafama, I would ask you to leave it up there. If you could characterize, I see there's a scale bar, but if you could just give us what the potential dimensions are, as well as the dimensions of the remaining sidewalk that would be there.
Sure. The sidewalk would be consistent at 6 feet wide. The curb would jut in approximately 8.5 feet to allow for a truck to pull in, and it would be approximately 30 feet in length. So this would allow for a UPS truck, a U-Haul type moving van to allow for people to move furniture in or get deliveries at this location. The area would be painted, hatched. We'd probably put some signage indicated loading zone, no parking, so we don't have people parking in that area.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have questions or reactions that they want to share to this?
Mike, I was wondering if do you have dimensions on that cutout area?
I was just saying it's 8.5 by 30 feet.
So it's 8.5, okay.
Mhm.
I'm a little concerned about how close it is to the intersection. Because any loading truck is not, it's still gonna be protruding out into Woodland Road, partially into the lane.
Well, I didn't think it would, Martha. I thought we had enough width here that the truck would fit in there. That's why we made it 8.5 feet wide and deep so that the truck could pull in. If we need to push it down a little bit, we can certainly move it down maybe another 3 or 4 feet to get a little further away from the intersection. I thought it was a good solution to a problem a potential problem that we might have on the move in and move out and the UPS type deliveries. We also made this suggestion at the Wells Fargo site on Essex. We did the same type of design, and that seemed to be received pretty well.
Yeah, I would say I do appreciate it. I like that you are working to acknowledge feedback you heard last meeting, which is that Woodland is narrow. So I commend you on that. And I don't know, perhaps you can work with the traffic, Mr. Dean, who might be able, I don't know if it needs to go so far.
Yeah, I
can
can work with Martha's office and Ms. Callahan's office and try to refine this design and get it to a point where maybe when the traffic engineer testifies, we'd have a more refined design that he can opine upon as well. And then we can present it at a later date more formally.
Great, thanks. But before I don't want to be the unilateral voice. So if anybody else, wants to weigh in.
Can I say something?
Jorge?
No, I'm not an expert on this type of design. My concern is about pedestrian safety. I don't know if having this type of cutout on the sidewalk is safe for people. I don't know who can answer that question. Maybe Martha, I don't know if she, or even Paul, maybe, I don't know. It's just a question. I don't know.
Well, that we maintain the sidewalk at a 6-foot width. We thought that, we could soften the transitions perhaps, so it's not so abrupt. There's a number of things that we could do to refine the design and kind of, make it a win-win so that it works for pedestrian traffic, it works for passenger vehicles and loading and unloading situations. I thought it was a good solution, heading in the right direction, just possibly needing some refinement.
I would agree with that. I think the concept would work. Maybe just we'll tweak it a little bit and look at it. And but I think it's a good solution. So, and I don't see with the sidewalk being maintained, I don't think pedestrian safety would be an issue. So.
No, I just wondering when people does that, goes like this, maybe it's easier to go straight here. I don't know. It's just I'm concerned about pedestrian. That's it. Especially because we are very close to the Glenwood School, and there are a lot of kids walking here.
Right. And we acknowledge that, and that's why we felt something possibly needed to be done to address the loading, unloading situation. We know that we're going to be able to control the move-ins. What we don't control is UPS drop-offs or Amazon deliveries, things of that sort. And you have the potential of those types of vehicles more so than the move-in and the move-out, potentially clogging that area of the roadway. So we felt that this would address that. But as Martha said, we'll sit down, we'll talk to our traffic engineer, we'll talk with Martha's office and kind of come up with a refined design if this is something the board would like me to pursue. If it's not, we can drop it.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's definitely a good workable solution. If you didn't have that, you'd have a much more catastrophic potential because you wouldn't have anywhere for the trucks to pull off the road. If you didn't have that, what would have been the plan for a UPS truck or a FedEx truck or a small moving truck?
Well, the small trucks, as I had testified to at the last hearing, was they would be able to fit into the garage, like a step van, a smaller vehicle. The UPS drivers, you can't control. They just park right in front of any delivery that they're scheduled to go to, whether it's parking is permitted or not. So I thought this gave us the ability to help those deliveries happen in a more safe manner.
Right. And I would agree with you because I see Amazon trucks continuously. So I think it provides something versus nothing. So yeah, I'd say if you can tweak that to Martha's specifications, that would be ideal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Bruzak.
We're good to move on.
Obama, is a portion of the sidewalk then now moved onto your private property or the applicant's private property? Do I read that correctly?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Okay, so I think what you're hearing from the board is the request to continue pursuing this design.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that input. I appreciate that. Moving on, there was additional information requested with regard to the site lighting plan. This is, I believe this is sheet number 6 in the plan set. Let me just confirm the sheet number here. 5. This is sheet number 5. It's the lighting plan. It now has a revision date of November 20th, 2020. And the purpose of this revision was to address concerns about the walkway that exists along the back of our property. Well, it's not on our property. It's actually a township walkway on the Arboretum property. And it comes all the way around and ties from Woodland Road to Chatham Road. And there's a series of existing light fixtures that would no longer function once the buildings were torn down because they received their power from those buildings. So instead of providing power to those existing dated lights, we thought it would be more prudent to provide a more energy efficient LED type light fixture along the building. And you can see from the exhibit, sheet number 5, revised November 20th, the E-type fixtures are new lighting fixtures. We're proposing 8 of these lighting fixtures along the entire back wall of the building to illuminate the walkway as you move from Chatham Road down to Woodland. So you could see the light locations, and you could see we've provided some lighting levels along the pathway. The minimum lighting level we achieved along that pathway is 0.3 foot candles. So that should provide for a good quality lighting in that area. The light fixture we're proposing is a D-series LED fixture. They're wall mounted, they're relatively small. It's a black box with all down lights. So it's really going to have a minimal impact on that area. So there's not going to be a huge amount of light spillage off into the Arboretum area. All the lights would be directed downward so that we feel it would not have a negative impact, but still provides appropriate lighting for people that wish to walk along that path rather than walking out to the intersection of Woodland and Chatham on their way to the school, for example. Children may utilize that pathway from Woodland to Chatham, avoiding the intersection.
Mr. Lonzafano, let's mark this as Exhibit A18, which is your revised sheet 5 dated 11/20/2020.
Okay.
And let the testimony or let the record reflect that the testimony that Mr. Lonzafano just provided regarding lighting was with regard to Exhibit A18.
And Mr. Lanzafama, I missed it. Did you state that those LED lights would be mounted to the construction wall, or this is the end ultimate condition? Is this construction or permanent?
This is permanent. This would be constructed. This would be provided on the building once the construction was complete, or at some point when it was appropriate to provide lighting for that. I'm sure we can figure out some temporary lighting method in the interim that would be similar and provide a similar lighting level to provide safe passage along that pathway.
Yeah, and I believe that is also what Martha's question was regarding, with that when you start tearing it down to do the construction, there's no light. So I think we would, I would request that we have lighting both during construction and as a permanent condition.
Yes, exactly. We would provide temporary power to those same light fixtures. We wouldn't take them down until we were ready to turn, excuse me, turn on the lights that we're proposing for the building.
Great.
The next issue that I believe we wanted to address was, and while we're looking at this, it's not on this sheet, was the question about the configuration of the property lines in that area and the location of the boundary line between lot 76, lot 72, and lot 77. Lot 72 is one of the lots in our development and on which the proposed building would be constructed. And lot 76 is the property to the west of our lot, which has a finger that runs along our common boundary and separates lot 72 from lot 77. This was an item that had come up during the last hearing. I had referenced a exhibit. I think we used exhibit A14, Mr. Buzak, I think it was.
A14 I have down as the light grading blow up on Woodland and the staircase on Woodland. A13 I have the blow up of the grading plan staircase, so I don't
Okay, must be a
on here.
Yeah, I don't have the exact exhibit designation, but it was a colorized plan of the properties and indicated that this finger existed. Mr. Phillips had requested that I do a little research and provide him with an exhibit that would help define that. Now, this drawing is based upon certain title and boundary evidence that we came across in our investigations of preparing the surveys for the subject property. And one of the things that was very informative was a minor subdivision map prepared by Jim Halsey, the land surveyor from Maplewood, dated November 2nd, 1981, and revised through December 8th, 1981. And this subdivision basically created lot 72 from a much larger lot 76. And lot 72 had this little separation between 77, and 72. In other words, they retain that little sliver. I believe that the original intent of that subdivision was to an effort to keep that walkway on township-owned property. So when they cut off a portion of lot 76, they were trying to keep that sliver so that the walkway would remain on that sliver and not fall onto an adjoining parcel that they sold off. So in my mind, I'm very confident from my surveying experience and as a professional land surveyor that this accurately depicts the boundary lines between the three parcels.
Thank you.
Do you want, Mr. Lanzafama, I looked on my sheet, it looks like we had marked A8, which is a colorized version of A7, which is what you may have been referring to earlier. You want to mark this document as well?
Sure. We'll mark this A19.
Yes. And this is a revised sheet 7, A7, or sheet 7?
This is just indicated as property boundary determination.
That's fine. A19.
With a date of November 2nd, 2020.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Michael, what was that called again? The
boundary line determination dated November 2nd, 2020. Excuse me.
Was that submitted in hard copy, Mr. Lanzafama?
It was not, Mr. Busak. That I sent it to Mr. Phillips and I neglected to send it to Eileen.
Okay, will you be able to do that? And this way she'll have that as a hard copy exhibit, please?
I can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Moving on, one of the things I'd like to correct on my part and in my testimony, I was asked by one of the neighbors, would there be fire pits or barbecues on that mid-tier plaza? In other words, we have what we referred to as the upper level roof courtyard. You have the street level courtyard, you have what we call the quiet courtyard, and then one story up, we have the upper level roof courtyard. And I had indicated that there would be no fire pits or barbecues proposed in that location. Well, after the meeting, I was corrected by my client that it was his intention to provide both fire pits and barbecues at that level. So this exhibit A16 now reflects that we are providing an outdoor seating area and 2 fire tables, fire pits, for use by the tenants to gather in that area, and as well as 2 barbecue stations to be located in that area. These were not on the prior plans. It was something I missed, but my client was very clear to me that this was something he wanted to do and that we should correct the record. And so I am now correcting it to now indicate that those items are being proposed on this upper level roof courtyard.
And Mr. Lanzafama, these amenities will only be for the use and enjoyment of the tenants of the building, correct?
That's correct. One of the other items that we were asked to explore was the idea of a green wall that could be employed along the backside of the parking deck or the parking level as adjacent to the Arboretum. So we did have a conversation with Mr. Doty, and we did come up with a plant material that's native to our area and could be employed as a wall creeper. It's called Virginia creeper, and it could be employed and planted at the base of the wall and maintained at a height to basically cover the parking garage wall that is common to the Arboretum. This is I've taken the liberty of utilizing one of Mr. Minnow's exhibits that haven't been marked yet. So I guess we would have to call this A20. And this is a Casey and Keller modified portion of the elevations proposed by Minnow and Wasco. And what we're showing is a red box. Let me blow this up a little bit. We would plant the Virginia creeper at the base of the wall. It would then tend to grow up and cover that wall section so that it would kind of blend in with the existing Arboretum forest growth. We would maintain it so that it would not go above the parking garage, and we would make sure that any vent areas would not be clogged by the growth. So that would be employed in that area. This is just another section of that wall that would also receive that treatment. This also shows the location of where we propose to place the LED light fixtures. So they would be mounted 10 feet above grade. So along that, basically between the two levels of the parking garage. I believe that addresses the open items or items that the board felt they needed more information on or wanted me to explore. I'd be happy to answer any further questions about these different elements that I've brought to light this evening, and hopefully move on from here.
Thank you. Questions from the board for this witness on the testimony he provided. Now, certainly I know Mr. Lanzafama, I think you just teased us with a rendering, and I think there may be a lot of questions about that, but I believe we'll hold those for the architect unless they have to do with the planters, which you just provided. Any questions from the board regarding that? Mr. Buzak.
Mr. Lanzafama, if I understand the plans, we have about 1.08 feet at the narrowest point and 2 feet along the garage wall where you're proposing to plant this Virginia creeper. Am I reading the plans correctly? That's toward the what I'll call the top of the plans. Is that correct?
You are reading the plans correctly, yes.
And in your opinion, is there sufficient space there to plant the landscaping that you are considering?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Phillips.
So I'd like to just comment on the lot line discrepancy issue that Mr. Lanzafama just testified to and provide some history and context and what the implications are. So since the last meeting, I learned from Eileen that the tax maps were apparently revised several years back. I have a full set, which I've had for years, of the township tax maps for the entire township, which I have been using throughout. I was unaware of the update, and I wasn't informed of the update of the tax maps. And in fact, nor was the property owner developer informed of it, since we were all using what were, I guess, the outdated tax maps at the time the zoning was being considered. In fairness, Mr. Lanzafama was not involved at the time. The zoning was basically being considered, but indeed the tax maps with that finger portion of lot 76 extending further down the site are indeed accurate. So the intent of the zoning was to provide a 7-foot building setback
along a portion of the rear property line. And that meant a 7-foot setback to the nearest adjacent property. Now, all the abutting properties are township owned, but we were looking for a 7-foot setback, again, based on the maps that we used to come up with the zoning. Because of that narrow finger portion of the township owned lot 76, the actual setback is more like, and it's, you know, it differs based on the length, but it's roughly about 6 feet. And again, that the way the plans are shown currently, they do conform to the zoning as written. So the consequence is about a 1 foot less setback than what everyone thought or intended at the time. I don't think that 1 foot is significant. I would just indicate that, you know, perhaps as some kind of mitigating measure, the applicant could, I was thinking, could provide some additional plantings in an appropriate location on the site at the planning board's directive. But having said that, and also, and I think we'll get to this when we have additional testimony from the architect, because it's one of the provisions in the zoning ordinance, which would be to screen that portion of phase 1 where some portion of additional level of the garage is exposed. So I do personally like the notion of the wall creeper that Mr. Lanzafama testified to. I would, and I'm sure the board feels the same way, would like to see some kind of real life example of that, to see what it looks like and where it has been in place for some time and how it's kind of stood up to time and how it is maintained. But I do like that notion in that particular area. Thank you.
Thank you for both items you highlighted. Okay, if we don't have other questions from the board for Mr. Lanzafama, then we can turn to the public. I believe we already have a first hand raised.
I do have.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. I did not see you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I do have one more question.
Go
Both
ahead.
at the last meeting and again tonight, Mr. Lanzafama said that the lighting in the rear, that the power to create those lights would go away as soon as the demolition of the existing buildings was complete. My question is, why can't that power be supplied by the applicant from the new building?
It will be. That's the notion of putting the lighting on the building. Those lights would become owned and maintained by the property owner for the sole purpose of illuminating that walkway. We're willing to accept that responsibility. In addition, during construction, once we find out which building feeds those lights, we will redirect power from another location. We're going to need temporary power on the site to do our construction. We'll get power to those existing light fixtures so that the walkway can have its existing illumination even during construction. So we will make sure that at no time will that walkway go dark.
Does that answer your question, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So Eileen, if you would bring in, I believe it's Mr. Cosgrove, but I'm guessing based on the last initial. Okay. Welcome. Dave, see if you'd like to unmute.
I'm unmuting. Are you able to hear me now?
We are, yes.
Okay, thank you, folks. David Cosgrove, 99 Oakview. I live one house away from this complex, or to-be complex. Mr. Lanzafama, if you could go to the first exhibit you referred to tonight.
That was the site plan, I believe.
Which was correct, the site plan.
A16, okay. Yes, sir.
So thank you. Looking first at the right where you have it right now is good for the first question. The indentation that you're proposing to allow trucks to park when they're servicing this building. How much of public walkway is left after you do that indentation?
We would
Meaning
go-
you've moved the sidewalk onto the developer's property. How much of town land is left after that cut is put in? Is that making sense?
I'm not sure I'm following your question.
Okay.
Perhaps this is exhibit A17. This might be a better one to employ. This heavy black line is the public right of way. So you can see that this walkway is 6 feet wide. So it looks as though eyeballing it is about 4.5 feet, perhaps 5 feet on the public right of way, and about a foot and a half on the applicant's property.
Okay. So the proposition then, if this was used, is that the developer would be using the town land to be able to service, to have trucks service the property, correct?
No, the notion is that the township roadway would be modified in such a manner to allow for proper usage by motor vehicles that are coming to and from the site in the area. For example, a UPS truck they're just going to park on the street. They don't take the time to pull off into a parking area. So we're giving them an opportunity to find a safe haven so that you can still provide for safe pedestrian passage, at the same time provide for motor vehicles moving through Woodland Road.
And Mr. Lanzafame, if I may,
I'm not finished questioning.
Well, I was going to try
Are
to.
we going to have an order here or not? Madam Chair.
Mr. Cosgrove, I think Mr. Inglesino was coming in to help respond to that question that you asked.
That is correct. The applicant would agree as a condition of approval to grant a public easement along that portion of the sidewalk that would be on the applicant's property, so that at all times the public would be able to utilize the sidewalk without interruption. Obviously, the sidewalk will now be pushed back onto what is our property, but we would provide for continuous public access by way of an easement that would be approved by Mr. Buzak for public use.
I actually already had listed that as a condition of any action that the board takes, so I appreciate the comment, Mr. Inglesino.
Okay, thank you. So I want to return it to Mr. Cosgrove just to make sure that that was all a response to your question, and you can carry forward. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could stick, Mr. Lanzafame, with that diagram you have up right now.
Mm-hmm.
No, not the curb cut one or the delivery area, but thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Now, you made a comment a few moments ago that you wanted to change your testimony that you made last time under oath to state that on this upper tier deck, you now wanted to, or the developer now wanted to put fire pits and barbecues, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Now that I'm going to call that a triangle because I don't know quite how to describe the shape of that deck. That is on the roof of the 3rd floor of the building, correct?
It is on, it's the first living level. It's at the first living level.
Okay. So now is there an elevation that goes along with the roof of that, or the area you'd be standing on if you were using that
Take a quick
deck?
look. I'm just looking at my grading plan, so you could just get a sense of where we're at elevation wise, and just bring this up.
217, isn't it?
It's elevation 217 is the roof deck. The area immediately below that is at 196. So it's about, we have about 11, 12 feet above the grade there.
Well, the walkway we were just talking about, or the curb cut for the delivery, that's at 196, isn't it?
The curb cut we were talking about here?
Yeah, the sidewalk there, that's at 196, isn't it?
No, this is at elevation 206.
Okay.
The street level courtyard is at 196.
Okay. Now, how the size of this deck area, how many square feet is it?
The upper deck area, I had testified to it before. Let me see if I can find my notes. I believe we had that upper courtyard area. Seem to have it at hand readily. I don't have it readily in front of me.
3,900 square feet sound about right?
It sounds about right. I was thinking about 4,500, but yeah, that's
And a planned 260 occupants for that?
I don't know where you got 260 occupants from.
It's off your plans.
Not on my plan.
206 capacity of 260 people.
That's not on my plans.
Okay. Now,
Mr. Farmer, just to correct, I just want to make sure, I'm sorry, Mr. Cosgrove, for interrupting you, but I just want to make sure the testimony is accurate here. I thought you said that the elevation at the ground level courtyard was 196 and the elevation at the upper roof deck that Mr. Cosgrove was questioning on was at 217.
Correct.
I understand. All right, so that's 20 feet, 21 feet.
21 feet. I'm sorry.
Right. Okay. You said right.
12.
You said 11 feet or 12.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Cosgrove. Please proceed.
Very good. So who has access to this this one deck that we're talking about?
The residents of the building.
Okay, and how are they going to access that area?
They come in off several locations. There's a walkway off of the Phase 2 building. There's a variety of entrances off of the back wall of Phase 1.
Okay.
Yes.
So now if you could look at the diagram itself, I have a couple of questions. You've labeled and identified the fire pit and the seating areas and the barbecues. I'm wondering what that piece in the center is, which has what looks like columns and then it's not shaded in the middle. What is that?
These are planters. Let me see if I can locate. Give me 1 second. We had an exhibit that we had used at the prior hearing that would give you a much better indication of what that is. Courtyard, rendering courtyard. This chance to load up. That a chance to load up. This was marked as Exhibit A10 at the prior hearing. And this gives you an idea of, these are trees and planters that would be employed around the perimeter of the courtyard and up in that center area. And this would be just a green panel in the center of the platform.
When you say green panel, what do you mean? Just green pavement?
No, it's not. Well, there's concrete below it because it's on a roof deck, but it's a green roof material. They're plant materials that can be employed. There's a membrane laid down over the concrete. Under drains are provided. You put soil in there and put plant material in there.
Okay. Now, if you could go, and I'm keeping these questions, Madam Chair, to what he said, what he testified to about today.
That's fine.
We're
And I just
trying
want to let you know there are other hands raised. So I do want to.
Yeah, because I do have other questions. But anyway, if you could go to the colored drawing that you used that I think you said was Mr. Minnow's rendering, and in particular, the part where you were discussing that you were going to plant or had discussed with Mr. Doty planting the plants at the back.
Is that the correct one?
Yeah, if you could go down to the lower one on that exhibit that you have there. I think there was one with a broader shot. Yeah, stop right there, please, if you would. Now the ivy, how much property is between the bottom of the building there and the sidewalk that people walk on now? which is the area you're going to plant this plant material.
The ivy, yes. The ivies be planted right at the base of the building. From the building to the bituminous walkway, I believe is about 3 feet.
Okay. Now, looking at that same drawing, if you could go to the top and a little bit to the right, what is that? You're going faster than I wanted to go, but back down to the lower part. I'm sorry. Back down to the lower drawing.
This is the lower.
Okay, and move the other way, please, if you would, with that drawing. Now, if you could stop right there, that's good. So we're ready. When I look at the top of that building, I see some type of construction up there. And
This area here.
yeah, so now that's a fence there for the other deck, correct?
That is the rooftop deck that Mr. Minnow will speak to later on.
Okay, and then to the left of that fence, I'm going to call it that. What is that white hash marks that are there?
It's like a pergola.
Okay, and how tall is that pergola?
I don't know.
Okay, all right. That's all I had for this witness at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Cosgrove. Okay. So I saw the initials JP were next. Eileen, if you would bring that member in. And then Deborah, I see that your hand is raised. We'll have you come next. Okay. Hello there.
Hi, let's see if I.
Oh, we could hear you, but now you're muted again.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Hi, I'm Jean Pasternak. I'm sorry. I live on Hobart Avenue, 342 Hobart. So I'm within the Glenwood section, and I would call myself a neighbor of where this proposed development is. I would like to understand what was the rationale for amending the testimony to include the rooftop, whatever it's being called, garden with the fire pit, etc. Why wasn't that included initially?
Because I made a mistake.
Mm-hmm. What was the rationale for including it?
It's an amenity feature that my client wanted to employ as part of this building. As you may or may not be aware, apartment construction is quite common these days in New Jersey. It seems to be the trend, especially in areas where mass transportation exists. It seems to be the way people want to live. And one of the key features in attracting clientele or potential tenants to the building is to provide them with an array of amenities that make it an ideal location for them to live and relax in.
Okay, I'd just like to, this is more of a comment, I guess, but in response to that, given that there's an arboretum directly across, given that it's a neighborhood with most, almost exclusively residential, alongside the small area of retail, it seems to be an extreme request, given the nature of the neighborhood, given the nature of the concerns expressed by the neighbors. What is the noise impact likely to be? The light impact, the 260 potential occupancy, sounds like parties could go on there. Who's going to monitor such a thing? And how is that going to fit into the residential feel of the surrounding area? I'm very, very puzzled by this. I think it's very aggressive, and I'm sorry to hear that that's the only rationale that you can express as to why that would be put on this building.
Well, I think quality of life and people wanting to have the same amenities that someone who lives in a single family home would have. People all have patios in their yards and fire pits in their yards and barbecues in their yards. People like those features in a place in which they live. They also love the idea of being able to walk across the street and taking mass transportation into their place of work, so they don't have to drive across parkways and highways in New Jersey and pay high tolls and pollute like crazy. The whole concept of this type of new suburban living is to minimize traffic, to put buildings like this in places where mass transportation exists and where the infrastructure is already in place. This, in my mind, is so much better than doing the large scale single family developments we did back in the 60s and 70s, where we literally destroyed our farmland and destroyed our woodlands. Here we have the opportunity to really advance some of the goals and objectives of the state master plan, to provide for housing, appropriate housing for not only people that can afford it, but low and moderate income families as well, so that we all have a decent place to live, no matter what your economic, where you are on that economic scale.
Right. Well, forgive me for questioning, what you're saying, but I have to say it completely ignores the people that have existed in that location and around surrounding that location, all the way up through Hobart Avenue and all the way down, past all the neighborhoods surrounding there. I mean, they have also, there has to be some consideration for the expectations that those people had in purchasing their homes, and with the expectation of quiet enjoyment, the goal of what this suburb is, small and high end. And so I hear what you're saying, but I feel that it's very much weighed toward the developer and their needs versus the existing neighborhood and residents. And I think that that's not being considered fairly enough, and it needs to be weighed in. And I hope this planning board will do that. Thank you.
I understand.
Thank you. And just confirming, Ms. Pasternak, are there any other questions?
No, that's I'm finished for now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Eileen, I had seen Deborah. Oh, you brought her right in. Okay, thank you. Deborah, you should be with us. And
hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi,
we can.
Deborah Nevis, 65 Knollwood Road. Just a practical question. Who do we contact if there's a problem during the construction? I'm thinking particularly if the lights aren't working on that path. Who are we going to be able to reach out to make sure that someone from either the construction crew or from the Silverman group will be available to make sure that safety is maintained in terms of lighting being consistent throughout the construction project?
I can address that.
Thank you.
Is that would be, you reach out to the town. I mean, the Silverman Group will not be interfacing directly with residents with regard to the complaints. Residents can certainly reach out to the municipality, who will be able to contact the Silvermans, the developer, who will respond immediately to any communication that they receive from the municipality.
And to whom in the town should we be contacting?
I can't answer that. That would be for the town.
Martha, go ahead. You're muted.
You could either call the engineering department and we could direct any kind of complaint to the project manager on the site, whoever is working out there. In addition, I believe the existing lights that are out there, the township lights, are powered from the building that will still be in place, the one that Summit Medical Group. So in the beginning of this phase one, Summit Medical Group building will still be there, and they provide the power to that existing lighting. So for the first part of the project, we shouldn't have any problem with that, but you can contact either Public Works or the engineering department, and we would make sure that we could get that taken care of.
Is there a way to make that public so that we don't, members of the public don't have to scrounge around trying to figure out what the contact emails are, the phone numbers are. Is there a way to post that somewhere so that we have easy access to it?
It's easy to just call the township. In general, you know, those questions are directed generally. If you call the main number at the township, they get those questions directed to the right department, so.
Okay. All right.
It's not really an issue. You know, we can handle those.
Okay, I guess, and then my other question is, given the, you know, discussion about barbecues and fire pits up on that roof, I'm wondering what kind of fire protection there's going to be because it's in such close proximity to the Arboretum.
Well, again, if I can, the architect will be testifying with regard to the fire suppression system that will be, you know, present in the building. And I think you will see that we will comply with all applicable laws and codes. But that's a question that would be better suited for the architect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I see another question, I believe, from BB. Good evening. I think if you can unmute yourself, we should be able to hear you. BB, we can't hear you yet.
So sorry. Okay, you
There
can
we
hear
go.
me now?
We sure
Okay,
can.
thanks. I'd like to start out by.
Could I ask you to just state your name? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Beatrix Shear, 101 Oakview Terrace. I'd like to start out by asking a question about the cutout on the curb. If you want to show that again, Mr. Lanzafama,
Sure.
to invite the trucks to pile in there. Yes.
I like your characterization.
Well, that's what it's going to be. No, okay. So, how, this was your idea, this cutout?
It was.
Okay. So how wide is a UPS truck?
UPS truck, they vary in size, but as far as their width, over the road vehicles are typically no wider than 8 feet, even the largest trucks on the roadways. And the lengths vary from probably about 25 to 30 feet.
But they will be sticking out from this cutout.
No, they won't. No, they
They'll
won't.
be flush. If they pull in right to the edge, they'll be there.
Yes, they would be.
So if we didn't have this cutout, this invitation for trucks to pull in there, again, tell us what was the original plan for where these delivery trucks would go?
As I had mentioned at the last hearing, that UPS type vehicles would most likely end up parking, parallel park on the street and make their delivery. And then
No. You said there was a plan that they would go into the garage, correct?
No, what I was saying was small step vans or U-Haul type trucks, the smaller ones, can fit in the garage and would most likely do that.
And what about the UPS trucks? Can the UPS trucks fit in the garage?
No, I never said they would go in the garage.
No, can they fit in the garage?
No, they're head clearances.
So you had no plan for UPS trucks, and this is the only plan you have?
As I said.
Because there's no parking on that side of Woodland Road. Are you aware of that? So they couldn't park there. There's no parking there.
Are you done? Can I answer a question?
Please. Yeah.
Okay, let's start with your first question. As I said in the original testimony I gave at the last hearing, that UPS drivers would park on the street and make their deliveries. Park on the street. They would not have an opportunity to park in this notch that we created. This was a direct response to concerns we heard by the neighbors that they felt Woodland Road was too narrow, even though there's parking on one side, but there is no parking on the east side of Woodland Road from Chatham Road for the first 60 feet or so.
True.
that argument that was made by the property owners, the neighbors, that the roadway is too narrow, really didn't hold any water at this location. But we wanted to be responsive to your concerns, so we formulated this idea to address the drop-off and deliveries made by UPS and Amazon type vehicles.
So if they didn't park there, they'd have to park somewhere else where parking was allowed, correct? Because we do have police in this town that could come out and make them leave, correct?
They park all over Millburn.
Well,
If you go to the
maybe they
downtown-
do, but they can't if they're not allowed to, can they?
They do.
And right now, there's no parking on that road at all, on that side of the road at all, correct? So now you're going to invite parking when there was none, correct?
In a safe and appropriate manner, yes.
Well, we don't know if it's safe. There are school children, as we say, walking up along there. Isn't it possible that many children will just, when they don't see a truck there, they'll just go right across? They won't be able to see even what's on the other side of the truck. And what about carrying larger things back and forth, across the sidewalk? Isn't there going to be a lot of back and forth there and a lot of trucks pulling in and pulling out? You had no plan for where the pickup and delivery would be. Is that what you're saying? None at all?
That's not what I said, but I'm letting you
Well,
go.
what was your plan? What was your plan?
I think with all respect, I think that's been asked and answered.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know we were asked and answered. Okay. And now about the moving trucks. Where are they going to go? Are they going to go in the garage? The big moving trucks.
There will most likely there will not be any large moving.
Well, suppose I don't believe you when you say that. Suppose I don't take your word for that.
I think it'd be appreciated if the witness would be permitted to answer the question that is asked.
Okay, the question was where. He wasn't answering the question. He was saying he doesn't think there are going to be any big moving trucks. I said, where will the big moving trucks go is the question.
Are you done? Can I answer now?
Yes, please.
Okay. There are not anticipated any large moving trucks coming to the site. These are 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. You're not talking about a large amount of furniture for each of the move-in.
You're not responding to my question. Suppose a moving truck comes, and how do you, and on what do you base that? That there's no big moving trucks
Madam
come?
Chair, I think
the
witness should be allowed to answer the question. If the questioner doesn't like the answer, that is her prerogative, but I think we're getting to the point of where this is just becoming.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Inglesino. Yeah, Phoebe, I certainly want to allow you to ask the questions that you want to ask,
well,
please let me finish.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
You're breaking up.
Breaking up.
Please do give the apologies. All right, Phoebe, please continue.
Okay. Where will if a big moving, or when, because what you believe is not what I believe. I believe big moving trucks will come. And I want to know where, or will they be not allowed? Will people write in there, will it be written in the lease, no large moving trucks are allowed to come?
Yes, that's my understanding and
Oh, it'll be in the lease.
Yes, they'll be directed when they sign their lease. They'll be given instructions, a move-in date, a move-in time, where they're to come, and how to enter the building. That'll all be focused by the management. And if a potential tenant has an issue with that, they won't rent here.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say that that in the lease or the tenants would be told that they were not allowed to be moved by a large moving truck. Is that what you're saying or not?
That's what I just said several times. Yes.
No.
Yeah, and just so a large moving, there's no vans. They're not going to be permitted to bring in moving vans.
They're not going to be permitted to bring in vans.
That's correct.
So the main moving, the main moving trucks will be, how large will the biggest moving trucks be that are going to be permitted?
22 feet. don't know. You can find a number of trucks that are available through moving companies, U-Haul, Ryder. They come in a variety of sizes. They're most likely not going to be any longer than 30 feet.
But let me suggest this, if I might. Mr. Inglesino and Mr. Lanzafama have indicated that there will be a provision in the lease related to the manner in which move-ins and move-outs take place, and among the controls will be the size of the vehicle. I would ask Mr. Lanzafama and or Mr. Inglesino to get some further information, details as to what would be in the lease and what the limitations would be, particularly on the size of the vehicle, so that we can have that in the record accurately, and we can incorporate it in any actions the board may or may not take here.
So, Mr. Buzak, we can agree that the trucks will be no longer than 30 feet.
Okay. Thank you.
Could a 30-foot truck fit in that area? It looks like it's, you know, it's the outer edges of it are wider than the inner edges. So is this area going to be 30 feet on the inside so a truck fits in there?
Yes, it would.
And so all of the deliveries, all of the moving trucks, everything is going to happen on Woodland Road, correct?
The move in and move out, correct, as well as the anticipated UPS type delivery.
Okay, and so have you consulted with the traffic consultant to see how that will affect the traffic on Woodland Road?
There will be testimony from our traffic engineer later in the hearing, not tonight, but at another date.
Okay, I'd like to ask you now about the roof with the fire pits. You've said that this is an ordinary sort of thing to have in our neighborhood. Are you saying that a normal home in our neighborhood has 260 people, 6 barbecues and 2 fire pits?
I've never testified about the number of occupants on these rooftop areas. You'll be hearing from our architect soon, we hope, and he will give you much more detail about the features of the rooftop areas, amenities, and their capacity, and what you can and cannot expect from those areas.
Okay. In the picture that you showed when Mr. Cosgrove was talking to you of the rooftop, the old picture, not the new one. Can you put that up again? The one with all the trees and it looks nice and calm.
Okay.
You know which one I'm talking about.
I believe I do. I believe I do. This one here. This again.
No, yes, that's it.
Exhibit A10.
Mm-hmm. So, who prepared that picture?
Our office did. My office.
And are those green circles, are those trees?
Yes, they are.
So are you going to have trees? Are those trees going to be on the roof?
Yes, they are.
And you're going to put the fire pit and the barbecues around the trees?
Yes.
It seems like the two pictures are incongruous.
No.
What? Oh, have you consulted with the fire marshal about the fire pits and the barbecues?
I have not, no.
So you don't know whether there's a fire risk there? You haven't got approval of the fire department for that?
With all respect, testimony is and will be from the architect that these amenities will comply with all relevant codes, rules and regulations.
But you haven't got the approval for what you've planned. And
Well,
are you the witness?
If I can, I think this is these are questions that are more appropriate for the architect.
Okay, I have a bunch of questions going through the documents that were on the township site, and I don't believe you've answered these questions, but maybe you have. There is a list of, there's a whole compilation of documents, the township forester, the township engineer, the fire marshal, the township police, and the planner. Do you have those?
I do.
You're referencing, I just want to check this, Beth, are you able to hear me more clearly?
Yes.
Okay, you're referencing the professional reports.
Yeah, the professional reports. So the first one is from, I guess, our township engineer. And she says,
If we might, this is the memorandum, I believe, this year that you are referring to. It's September 11, 2020 from.
yes,
Township
yeah,
Engineer.
that's exactly the one. Okay,
Right, thank
so,
you.
so it says, under technical review and recommendations, it says, an analysis of the existing 18 diameter stormwater pipe should be calculated to determine if it has adequate capacity to carry the flow from the site. Has that been done?
Yes.
Yes, and if I may, Mr. Buzak, we have been through these reports in detail, line by line. I think what is appropriate is to ask questions of the witness with respect to the testimony that he's given this evening. I don't think respectfully that it is appropriate to go through reports issued by the town professionals, which have already been discussed at length in testimony, and with an opportunity for the board and the public to ask questions in regards to those points. That's prejudicial to the applicant. But Mr. Lanzafama is, of course, willing to answer questions with regard to the testimony that he has given this evening.
Well, I didn't have
Thank you.
access to these. I didn't have access to these reports before tonight, and I don't think.
I'm going to ask that Mr. Lanzafama, I would ask Mr. Buzak to please weigh in on what on my objection, and he'll certainly direct the board accordingly.
But my recollection is that we did open the meeting to the public after Mr. Lanzafama's testimony on the 6th and the 20. No, I'm sorry, on the 28th. I don't think we had questions on the 6th or the 8th of October, but I know we did have them on the 28th. And Mr. Lanzafama did go through all of the reports, except I believe the planner's report, although you may have done that on the 28th because we didn't have the planner available at the earlier meeting. And he did indicate that he was going to comply, or that the applicant would comply with a number of the provisions, including that one in particular. I think that Mr. Inglesino's objection is appropriate. We did give the public an opportunity to be heard and to ask questions on Mr. Lanzafama's testimony, and had he not had supplemental information tonight, he would not be here testifying. We would have heard from the witness. So we would have heard from other witnesses. I'll let Mr. Lanzafama answer this question. I would ask the resident to try to limit the questions to the testimony that we've had tonight, because we did have an open session on questions earlier, and I think it is inappropriate to just keep rehashing the old information that was available to the public at that time.
And Mr. Buzak, I would further add, and for yours, Phoebe, as well as the full public, all these meetings are recorded and made available. So if there was something that you wanted to go back and re-listen now that you have these papers in hand, and I understand what you're saying, that you didn't have the opportunity to see them to understand it. But if you go back and listen again, I know that our board asked many questions about the engineers as well as the planners reports.
And Madam Chair, if I could just clarify, but the reports were available.
Yes,
that's correct.
So, right, so I thank you for clarifying. You didn't have them in front of you, but they have been available as on the website.
So
So would
on-
you like Mr. Lanzafama to respond to 2.2 specific question?
Pardon me? I'm sorry, you're breaking up again.
I apologize. Hang on just one moment. Are you hearing me more clearly? Via
Yes,
phone?
yes.
I just wanted to let you, do you want Mr. Lanzafama to testify to 2.2? The question.
The question I asked?
Yes.
Well, I guess if that's the only question I can ask about these, I'm not sure that he actually went over all of this in his testimony. But I'll go back.
I have in my notes that Mr. Lanzafama, specifically with regard to 2.2,
Pardon me?
said that either they did that or they were okay to do it. I think his testimony tonight was that it has been done. Is that correct, Mr. Lanzafama?
That's correct. I performed those calculations, determined that the 18-inch pipe is adequate.
Says the analysis of the water pipe should be calculated to determine. And so have you got those? Did you present those to the town?
I have not presented them to Martha yet, no.
So wouldn't I have a right to ask whether these things have been done? I mean, to say that they're going to do them is not the same as they've been done. And we see this one wasn't done.
If they are conditions of the approval, then they would have to be done before the project can be completed. That's my
That is
understanding.
correct. Anything that the applicant has indicated will be done, will either be done before the board acts on the application. If they have not been done at that time, they will be conditions of approval that have to be satisfied to validate the approval. And this is.
I had asked about the fire sprinkler systems before, and Mr. Lanzafama didn't know what sprinkler system was going to be used. I noticed now in the fire chief's report, the fire chief recommends a specific system, and PPA 13 fire sprinkler system. May I ask Mr. Lanzafama if that is the fire sprinkler system they're going to use?
Again, first of all, that is not Mr. Lanzafama's area of expertise. Secondly, Mr. Buzak, I appeal to you. Really need to keep questions confined to the witness, to the testimony of this witness.
Well, again, I agree with Mr. Inglesino's objection, but I'm looking at my notes on this, and unless my notes are incorrect, and Mr. Lanzafama, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the NFPA 13 system for concealed spaces and attic space would be done by the applicant, as would the first portion of that comment in the battalion chief's report of August 1, 2020. Is that correct, sir?
I think that's right, Mr. Buzak. You will hear testimony from the architect on that point directly.
Okay, all right.
He will address those issues.
All right.
I think we were trying to be responsive to comment letters to the extent we could, to say that we would agree with certain things, even if they were beyond the expertise of Mr. Lanzafama, just for purposes of moving it along. But certainly the testimony with regard to the fire suppression system will be given by Mr. Minow.
Okay, so Mashir, you will have the opportunity to ask any questions after Mr. Minow's testimony on that issue.
Okay, and then of course, at the last hearing, Mr. Lanzafama did not tell us about the fire pits and the barbecues, and there is another question. There is an issue about that in the fire battalion's the battalion chief's report on number 3. Is this, you saying your architect takes care of this, whether about the open flame cooking devices? It's number 3. Open flame cooking devices and fireplaces, pits must only be operated in the designated areas as per the approved construction plans. Have construction plans been approved?
For me, no, nothing has been approved yet.
The fire pits, you'll have to get the fire pits and the cooking devices on the roof. They're going to be in the construction plans.
That's correct. And the fire chief cites the New Jersey code that applies to those types of uses, and we will comply with that code.
And what about liquid propane? The grills are not going to have any liquid propane gas, I assume.
I don't believe so, but I'm not certain. That's not really my area.
Fireplaces are not allowed to be used or stored.
Ms. Shear, please just allow Mr. Lonzo.
Yeah, okay.
Your question. When he answers the question, he'll indicate when he's finished. And then if you have a follow-up question,
okay,
certainly permitted to ask him, but please don't interrupt him because we'll be here all night. Mr. Lonzo, please, if you can complete your answer.
The question, item number 4 in the battalion chief's memorandum of August 1st, 2020, my response was I don't know what the propane situation would be, and that would be addressed by the architect, Mr. Minnow, during his testimony.
Well, and if I might, Mr. Lonzo, that comment indicates that liquid propane gas is not allowed to be used or stored on the premises. And
that answers that
Minnow
question.
can say whatever he wants to say. But I assume that he's going to comply with what the law is, and I would be absolutely shocked if his testimony would be that you're going to have that. But I guess
you're absolutely correct, Mr.
Fair
Buzak.
point, Mr. Buzak. We will comply with the law. Mr. Minnow will testify with regard to those items.
I'm not surprised.
About one other question, just to follow up from last time about the plantings. I had asked about plantings on the southern portion of the building, extending around the semicircle at the end of the finger. Will there be plantings there? They weren't in your plans.
No, they were not. And I think I had testified that we would do our best. However, that area around that curve or bend was the area where we chose to put, or had the opportunity to put, the dry wells to further reduce runoff rates from the site. So planting of trees in that area was not going to be possible, but we would make whatever effort we could to help enhance that area.
Okay, and the planner's report, is that something that you covered completely at the last hearing?
I believe the areas that I could address, many of the items in the planner's report deals with the building and the building facade and colors and materials. Those are out of my area of expertise.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, before you get another member of the public, I'd just like to clarify something with Mr. Lonzo, if I may.
Please.
Thank you. Mr. Lonzo, on the drawing, which I think was Exhibit 820 that Mr. Cosgrove was talking about, which showed that rooftop area and the pergola, is it true that area that shows in 820 is not the area to which your testimony was directed tonight?
That's correct, Mr. Buzak.
And secondly, with regard to your testimony tonight, which is the other rooftop area, will that be able to be, let me ask the question better. From what view, street view, will that area to which you testified tonight, rooftop area, be seen?
The only place you could see that from was if you were standing on Woodland Road looking directly at the courtyard area. That entire area is surrounded by a building.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're
Oh,
welcome.
and one last thing. In that exhibit, which was, I think, A8, which was your landscaping plan of that whole area.
810.
810, sorry. If you can just put that up for 1 second. Is it true that the area in which the fire pits and the barbecue grills will be are to the right, right, exactly, right in that area? Is that correct?
This is where the fire pits will be. The barbecues would be located along this line.
Okay, so they won't be all over that area. It'll be confined to those areas that you just pointed out.
That's correct.
And those, again, will not be visible other than from Woodland Road.
Woodland Road is at the base of the drawing, so the only place you could see it would be a view from Woodland, directly opposite the courtyard.
Assuming the landscaping there didn't
You're correct.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay. I do see Mr. Cosgrove has his hand. Eileen, if you can hear me, I am the phone number in attendees. If you could bring me in, I can also participate more clearly if you're not able to hear me.
Hello, are you folks able to hear me?
Having trouble, but
yeah.
Okay. Shall I speak or I'm still on hold?
Go ahead. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. These are some follow-up questions based upon the questions that Mr. Buzak just answered this witness. Sir, are you testifying under oath that you're able to tell this board right now as you sit here who can see that deck on the Woodland side and from what angle?
Correct.
You are?
Yes, sir.
It hasn't been constructed yet, but you're testifying under oath that you know who's going to be able to see that the activity going on that deck.
I am testifying to the points at which someone would be able to look and observe activities on that mid-level deck. Yes.
Okay. So it's three stories in the air. The people that are the 270 or 80 people that are going to be on there are going to be making some noise. The grills are going to be going with smoke. And your testimony is it's not going to bother any of the neighbors?
That was not what I just said. And that's not the question you originally asked me.
Okay.
You said, who can see it?
All right. I just want to make sure because the inference I got from the questioning from Mr. Buzak and your answers was that this deck was so concealed that it wouldn't bother any of the neighbors. And I just think that's horrible to try to leave that impression. That's all I have. Thank you.
You're welcome.
thank you. I do see Ms. Pasternak has her hand raised again. We can invite you back. Just let's, yep, please go ahead and address the question to Mr. Lanzafama. Thank you. You should be in, Jean.
Okay. Yes, my question is again another follow-up, same follow-up to the same comments that Mr. Cosgrove just referred to. You talked about sight and visual. What about noise? Could you comment on what level of noise and how that could be explained to members of the public with a full contingent of people at capacity, let's say 250 people? What would that sound like to the neighborhood? Thank you.
Mr. Lanzafama has not been qualified as a noise expert, number one, so it's not within his area. Maybe it is of his expertise, but it's not what he's been qualified to tonight. Number two, the testimony was that this area will be an amenity solely for the use of the tenants in the building. And number three, the applicant will comply with any and all laws, which would include any and all laws with regard to noise.
Okay, well, that hasn't answered my question at all, but is there another person that you think could answer it in the future?
We do not have, and we will not be providing a noise expert in connection with this application.
Okay, so then we really don't know what this is going to sound like to the neighbors surrounding the development. I'd also then like to ask, if we can't get a complete picture of this rooftop experience, given that you can't address what the noise level will be, you're not really sure what the barbecues and fire pits are gonna throw off visually in terms of smoke or smell or odors or any of the other senses that will be tapped by the neighbors from the fallout of having, up to 250 to 270 people. I think that's a big deficit for us as neighbors, not to understand that and not to be able to have a clear understanding of that by the people representing the developer. I would also like to understand, you commented that people would have to, it's up 3 stories. It's going to be sort of like, as Mr. Cosgrove characterized it, it's going to be not visible. And did you correct your testimony then to say that isn't really the case, that people would be able to see it, in fact, if there were 250 people up there grilling, barbecuing, etc.? The surrounding neighborhood would see that. I'm kind of unclear as to what you said.
Okay, if I understood you, first of all, I have never testified that there'd be 250 people on that deck. Second of all,
what's the capacity, sir?
I have no idea.
Oh, I thought,
The
okay.
architect, I don't know where you're getting that number from, but the architect will be testifying about the other rooftop deck that I think you're all alluding to. The question asked of me was where or from what vantage point would you be able to see the amenity deck that we've been speaking about? And my response to that question was that I believe that the only place in which you would be able to view that deck would be if you're walking along Woodland Road and you're in the vicinity of the street level courtyard, then you would be able to look you look to the west, and you would be able to see any activity that might be occurring on that rooftop deck. I hope that answers your question.
In part it does. I would say though, then again, the architect can address the capacity issue of whatever number of people. It's certainly more than 100, it sounds like, and it's more than 200. So that's a lot of people on a rooftop in a neighborhood that size. So no matter, how you want to, if you don't want to answer the question, I think we all kind of know that we're talking about hundreds of people.
Well, if I might interrupt, Ms. Pasternak, I think it's fair to say there has not been established during the course of this proceeding thus far the capacity of that, the capacity of that area.
Okay.
And B, even if you have the capacity, the maximum capacity, if there's any speculation by someone from the applicant's team as to how that would be used based upon the experience that they have. So the comments with regard to occupancy, just to be clear, I understand you're making them, I understand the point you're trying to make, but I think there's been no facts adduced that in this hearing that indicate the capacity or how that's going to be used. And I would hope that the applicant, based upon the questions that are being asked tonight, would consider providing testimony at some future date regarding that, so we can get clear for your purposes and for the board's purposes, the size of that deck, the capacity limitations and so forth. I understand that there's going to be testimony regarding the other deck, which will be visible from different vantage points than this one. But I would encourage the applicant to consider providing information, similar information with regard to this deck. And let me just
if Mr. Minow has the opportunity to testify, Mr. Buzak, tonight, he's ready, willing, and able to provide that information.
Terrific. Okay, that's
You
great.
have to get to him.
Okay.
Very good. I appreciate that comment, and I would just like to add one little nuance to that, which is if the capacity is discussed, could we also understand can a tenant or a group of tenants for example, reserve that for that.
Madam Chair, again, these are not questions for Mr. Lanzafama.
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
We're not able to get through our.
I appreciate that. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
And so I see there's a few other hands raised. If the hands are with respect to this, the deck and the construction, or the elevated rooftop, I would prefer if we could wait for the architect on that. If there are other questions for Mr. Lanzafama based on the testimony he provided, we will still allow you to do that. So please leave your hand raised if it's with regard to some of the testimony, and we will bring you in. I see somebody, Schofield.
Bring Ms.
Oh,
Schofield over since
thank
she
you.
hasn't spoken yet.
Thank you. Good evening. Schofield, I think we can hear you if you're there. Okay, I think.
Maybe not.
No, okay, no problem. And then it looks like Dave Cosgrove, you can come back. And you're in. Mr. Cosgrove.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Thank you. I just, the comments I made a few moments ago by, about the decks. I just want to make it clear that there, in my mind, there was no confusion at all.
Is there a question? This is an opportunity.
Yes, there is.
Questions. I'd appreciate it.
Please don't interrupt me.
Well, Ms. Cosgrove, this is your third or fourth time appearing, and frankly, I'm not able to proceed with my application. So if there's a question of the witness with regard to the testimony, please ask it.
How do I
But it's not appropriate for comments at this point. I need to proceed with the case.
Okay, Madam Chair, could we
Mr.
have
Cosgrove,
a ruling of
please.
some sort that he not interrupt me?
I think we've had a lot of cases of interruptions on everybody's part tonight. Let's all do our best to allow each other to ask the questions. So please do ask your question, and then
Very
we'll
good.
try
Thank
to
you.
answer it. Thank you.
Mr. Lanza-Farmer, if you pull up your diagram A2, which was amended on 10/16/2020.
A2.
And it's the plat that has the various levels.
A2.
A2. And the latest update is 10/16/2020. It's called Building Diagrams. And it has it's showing the 4 levels and the 2 phases.
Mr. Cosgrove, I just want to confirm that this is regarding something that he gave testimony on tonight.
It is, absolutely.
Okay.
And it's a very short question. That's why I was annoyed at being interrupted.
Not sure this is the right exhibit, and for some reason it's not.
It's page 2 of 7, and this is for, from the town's website.
That's not my drawing. I believe that's Mr. Minnow's drawing.
Okay.
Minnow's drawing.
If you could go to that, that'd be great. I'm looking for page 2 of 7.
I don't have
Page
that.
A2.
I don't have that drawing. That's Mr. Minnow's drawing.
Okay.
I'd have to see if I have his documents loaded on my hard drive. Architectural plan set. I'm not even sure this is the latest. Is this what you're referring to?
Does that have a date, the last revision date over to the right above building the diagrams? I can't read yours. Does that say 10/14/2020? Oh, sorry, 10/16?
Blow it up. Now this says May 30th, 2020. And these are not the latest plans that were submitted. These are not my documents. I don't feel comfortable testifying about.
Yeah, and if I might, Mr. Cosgrove, there's been no testimony by Mr. Lanza-Farmer regarding Mr. Minnow's plan. So if you would, if you could ask the question in a different way related to something else, that would be preferable.
I'll wait for Mr. Minnow then. I was trying to clarify that there's a document here that clearly states from the applicant how many square feet the woodland deck is. So there is no question about what the what they're proposing, that it's 3,900 square feet with 260 occupants. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. However, we find ourselves at
Can I bring over
10:15.
Ms. Schofield?
Yeah, I see a hand is raised. Yes, I apologize.
Hi, yes, Eileen
That
Schofield.
We didn't get to her before.
Oh.
Hi. There we go.
Okay,
Good
Eileen.
evening, sorry.
Oh, you got it? Okay. Eileen Schofield, 76 Oakview Terrace. Not to duplicate things, but we've got 2 party decks and I don't think they were on the original plans. So I'm just throwing that out there. That were negotiated. They've been add-ons and they keep adding more things on. But the second thing is there is a huge garage going underneath this, huge mammoth. And they're talking about having a cutout that's going to jeopardize not only pedestrians, but the school children that are walking up Woodland Road. They're going to have moving vans and UPS vans. Just make the garage a little bigger.
Ms. Schofield, this is a question portion. If you have a question to ask Mr. Lanzafama related to the subject matter, please ask it. There will be a time for comment, as the chair said, where you can make comments and suggestions and recommendations or whatever you'd like to do. But right now, we're just asking questions. So if you can form a question.
A question, what else can he do besides the cutout?
We can certainly explore other options.
Okay. And why were the party decks not on the original plans that went to the judge that were negotiated?
I was not part of that negotiation. I don't know.
Okay. So is the architect the person then, or would you talk to the architect about figuring out where to put these trucks?
We have a traffic consultant that's going to be testifying between now and the next hearing. We can certainly look at a variety of options and solutions for the loading and unloading question.
Okay, and I know the town attorney had mentioned putting it in the leases. Who is going to be enforcing that when the Mayflower van comes by?
The manager of the building, they won't let them move in. They'll tell them to move on.
It's gonna be a big job. Okay, and also,
Let's keep it to questions.
okay,
please. Thank
all
you.
right, that's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think we did allow all members of the public who had questions for Mr. Lanzafama. Mr. Phillips.
Thank you. Mike, just to make sure that everyone's clear on the upper level courtyard. So that upper level courtyard is at the first residential level of phase 1, correct?
That's correct.
And so essentially it would be, for lack of a better word, enclosed by 2 stories of building on all sides, but for the street level courtyard, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then one other question on that. I noticed in the site plan that it appears that a portion of that upper level courtyard is part of the phase 2 construction. Am I reading that correctly?
It's indicated as such. We have the line that's drawn there. We may have to tweak that line a little bit to bring that around. Dave and I will have to coordinate that.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering why it was part of the phase 2. I thought it'd be part of phase 1. And I don't know if it's the reason it is there where it is that there intends to be, and I have to look at Dave's plans, but is it intended that there is also access from the phase 2 building
There,
to
that was
the,
the intention, yes.
so that may be the reason why, but I just something for Dave to consider when he testifies.
Right. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Beth.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for clarifying those items. So here we are. Thank you all so far for the participation. So I guess we will turn to both Mr. Inglesino as well as your witnesses and Ms. Davitt in terms of when we can invite you back.
We are at your, we can come back tomorrow night if you'd like.
We actually have a downtown Millburn vision plan Zoom session. So quick plug for civic participation. So some of us are unavailable tomorrow night. But that said, we have a newly adopted calendar for 2021. So
we do have an application scheduled for the first meeting of January, which is typically our reorg. We have an application already scheduled for that evening. Is Martha still here? Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a quick application. Would you agree, Martha?
I agree, yes.
So I don't really think it's fair to put this on at the same day. So we might have to push it to February.
And is there a reason we can't have a second meeting in January?
I believe hold on one second. Where's my calendar?
It's a long month.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to request a special.
This is a special application.
I think I don't know why we couldn't 6/13. I think it would be January 20th.
Inauguration Day.
I don't know why. I don't know if did I leave it off by mistake? I don't know why there's not a meeting in January other than the 6th.
Okay.
To tell you the truth, I really don't know.
So let's consider
I don't know
if we either want to add it to the regular, make it a regular.
There's no town hall holiday or anything. Martin Luther King Day is on a Monday. There's nothing else in January. I don't know why, unless it was a, I don't even know.
Okay, then let's take advantage of the window of opportunity. So January 20th, can we just confirm with?
Except then we're going to have to re-adopt or I'll have to notice it as a special meeting because I don't know, it wasn't on the calendar we just adopted. So can we?
Well, will we be at the reorg meeting in January? Is that not when we adopt the resolution with our annual schedule and then publish that or submit it within 7 days, I believe it is, of the date of the reorg meeting, or 10 days?
Right. That's when we typically do it. I mean, I started doing it at the end of this year because I was told it's better to do it at the end of the year so that the current members of the board, for the following year.
Well, what we can do, since we just adopted that, and when I said, I thought we just approved it candidly, just to, so everybody had it on their calendars, but that we would actually formally adopt it as part of our reorg resolutions at the reorg meeting. But if there was an intention to submit it now in 2020 for 2021, we can certainly amend that tonight and add that date to that schedule. And then you can proceed as you would normally have proceeded. And we avoid any need for special notice meeting. Special meeting.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Yeah, I think it may have just been left off. I don't really know. I don't know what happened there, to tell you the truth.
Okay, so what action do we need to take?
What I would suggest, Madam Chair, is that someone move to amend the meeting schedule that was adopted earlier tonight to include the January 20th meeting to that, or to add the January 20th, 2021 meeting to that schedule. And then if we can get that passed with a motion second and a vote tonight.
Okay.
And then reschedule this, the hearing on this application.
Okay.
And Matt, well, I don't want to, I have something else, but I don't want to detract from your action to amend your annual meeting notice. So if I may be heard after that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, so long as Mr. Inglesino, you know that your witnesses can appear, particularly Mr. Minow, that would be fine. If he cannot appear, then I'm not sure to amend the resolutions. Is that where you were going?
Well, let me check with him now.
Okay, why don't you do that before we?
I know he's available December 16th. If we could have so the request would be for a special on the 16th. We have at least 2 more hearings left, I think. We have Mr. Minow, we have our traffic expert, and we have Mr. Tobia. So I have 3 more witnesses in connection with this application. So I think it's fair to say that we would have at least two more meetings. And if we had a special on the 16th and then scheduled another evening on the 20th, whether that's a special or that's part of the board's regular meeting schedule, then, we'd really like to have this application concluded by the end of January.
We have a meeting, December 16th, you mean December 16th?
Yeah, as in a couple of weeks from now.
I mean, we have the Wells Fargo application on that night.
Okay, so
That's
all right. So if you have a booked agenda, and if the January 20th is the first available date, I did confirm with Mr. Minow that he is in fact available on January 20th. So that would work for us.
Okay.
So
I will make the motion to revise the earlier
You're cutting out.
calendar to include January 20th. Bring my phone number in to it.
You can't bring the phone number in. I can hear you. It won't let me bring. The phone number can't be brought in as a.
I
can't hear her.
Can someone else maybe make the motion to?
I'll make a motion to amend the calendar that we approved to include the January 20th, 2021 date.
Okay, we have a second somewhere.
I'll second it.
Eileen?
Just so you, all those in favor, we did a unanimous voice vote.
All in favor?
We need to,
Aye.
folks. The thumbs up sign is good, but not good enough.
You need to unmute and say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair, can I make a request to the applicant's attorney? She go away? There she is down there. Okay. John.
I apologize.
Sorry, John, would it be possible to make Michael available at the next meeting? At the last meeting that you weren't able to make, he was not familiar with some of the construction phasing, which tied into some of the questions relative to the EIS that I wanted to ask. Michael made the statement that we should wait for the architect's testimony for that. And I said, that's fine, but I still wanted to ask some specific questions about that. So would that be possible?
I don't know. I know that Mr. Minow will be here, and certainly we want to have your questions answered. So when Mike, you're talking about Mr. Lazafama, I presume.
Right.
And if he can be here as a reference to answer your questions, we'll certainly see if he's available to do that. But I'm not going to be calling him as a witness to provide any further affirmative testimony. But we'll do everything we can to see if he can be here to answer your questions as a reference.
Yeah, I wouldn't be asking for any additional testimony, so I appreciate that. It's all relative to testimony provided earlier, but he wasn't able to answer certain questions because he's unfamiliar with some of the construction phasing information.
Sure.
Is that the January 20th date, John, we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, I'm available.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I've rejoined. I hope this is better. Okay. So I was able to listen and hear that we thank you for approving the addition of January 20th and everybody's anticipated participation. Did we make the statement that we would move to carry this without further notice, Mr. Buzak?
We have not. We have not done that yet, so I think you can do that now.
Mr. Buzak, if I can just ask you a question, or Madam Chair, just for the benefit of the public, will it be the same Zoom login information for the carried meeting, or will it be a different?
It's always different information. It has to change for each meeting.
Okay, and that will be available on the website for the public?
Correct. And it's also put in the newspaper.
Okay.
So just for the record, this hearing on this application will be carried to January 20, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. through the Zoom platform. As this meeting has taken place, as has been noted, there will be new information to access the meeting. So the public should either look in the newspaper or look on the website that will have the current information to access the meeting on January 20, 2021 at 7:30. There will be no further notice for that meeting. And I assume that Mr. Inglesino will provide any extensions at least through the end of January 2021 that are necessary. I don't know how far you extended.
Yes, Mr. Buzak, the applicant consents to extend through January of 2021.
January 31, 2021.
I'm sorry, January 31, 2021.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you. So, with that, I believe we can make a motion to adjourn for the evening.
I so move.
Second.
Thank you all.
All in
Happy
favor?
holiday season.
Aye.
Aye.
Good night. Thank you. Happy holidays. Be safe.
Happy holidays.
Night.
Thank you.